as you are building your idea, building your business, you are going to get a lot of no's.
I think also what's important is, do you have a story? And what is your story? You really, really have to have meaning behind what you're doing.
We're not asking for charity. We're asking for equality.
Creativity comes from being an outsider. Like, that's where it comes from.
Hi there, I'm Sharon Waxman, the editor-in-chief of the Wrap and WrapWomen. Welcome to the Be Mentorship Conference 2021. This is the 6th time that we've gathered to focus on building your careers in entertainment and media with a focus on diversity and inclusion. And this is by far the biggest effort that we've put together yet. Over the next 3 days, you can look forward to keynote interviews, panel discussions with actors, activists, and entrepreneurs, and a roundtable with top female showrunners in the entertainment industry. Among the incredible people joining us are actress Cynthia Erivo, showrunner Janet Mock, television host Padma Lakshmi, top agent Lori Bartlett, and the stars of the upcoming films In the Heights and West Side Story. This year, we've added a 3rd day with 16 separate workshops on topics that range from breaking into the industry, comedy, finance, self-care, and building confidence, along with, of course, the live mentorship sessions with top women in the industry. You'll get to network with other women on our WrapConnect channel on Slack, while learning and growing about yourself and your professional ambitions. I'd like to thank our incredible sponsors because we could not put this together without them. So a special thanks goes out to National Geographic, Adobe, ICM, Stage 13, Gerber Kawasaki, and the LA Film School. An additional thanks to our many community partners and to the wonderful speakers and mentors who are giving of their time to support the WrapWomen community. I'd also like to thank our dedicated staff who've put in many, many long hours into organize these exciting experiences for you. And so before we kick off today's program, here's our head of programming, Emily Vogel, with some tips and things you need to know about the Be Conference. Over to you, Emily.
Thanks, Sharon. Hey, everyone. My name is Emily Vogel. I'm the programming and editorial manager for events at the Wrap and WrapWomen. You might also recognize my name because I write and curate our WrapWomen newsletters and our WrapWomen blog. From career advice and self-care tips to industry insights and celebrity interviews, we've got you covered. Just sign up at wrapwomen.com. Now, before we jump into today's programming, a few housekeeping notes about what you can expect over the next 3 days. To follow along, check out the Be Conference website listed below. On this site, you can stream every session from day 1 and day 2 for free. For upgraded ticket holders, this is also where you'll be able to stream over 15 workshops on demand during day 3. And remember, you can always go back and catch up on discussions you may have missed or rewatch your favorite moments. For our upgraded ticket holders, we'll also have access to Mentorship, where you have the opportunity to join a live video call with an industry leader. Again, if you are registered for this upgrade, you should have already received an email with your designated date, time, and mentor assignment. If you haven't upgraded your ticket for access to day 3 workshops and mentorship, don't worry, it's not too late. You can still purchase them at the Be Conference website. We'll kick off day 1 and day 2 at 8:30 a.m. Pacific with special guest Instagram takeovers. Just head on over to the WrapWomen Instagram page. I hope you all enjoyed this morning's BeCon warm-up with Brooke. I know I'm already feeling pumped up for the day. After that, you'll have the opportunity to choose from a variety of panels and conversations. These are broken down into 3 different categories to help you navigate through the content. Hollywood Voices will be streamed from 9 to 10, Business Leaders from 10 to 11, and Personal Growth from 11 to 12:30. Again, all of these times are in Pacific. After that, be sure to head over to the WrapConnect Slack channel to chat with your fellow attendees and exchange personal insights and ideas. If you've been registered for the conference, you should already have received an invitation for this in your inbox. Our WrapWomen community partners and ambassadors will also be jumping in to host conversations throughout day 1 and day 2, so be sure to be on the lookout for that. Throughout the event, we also encourage you to share your thoughts and findings on social media. We're using the hashtag BCon2021. Feel free to tag us on Instagram at WrapWomen and on Twitter at @TheWrapWomen. And of course, a special thank you to all of our sponsors and community partners. We appreciate all of you. Now, let's get back to the programming. Today, you'll hear from rising Hollywood actors, award-winning creatives, activists, and executives who have come together to share their advice, lessons, and experiences with you. Enjoy, WrapWomen.
Hi everyone, I'm Jenny Moz, TV reporter at The Wrap. Welcome to our panel, Next Gen Hollywood, Inspiring Change Through Storytelling. Today, I'm going to be speaking with a group of rising Hollywood stars who are using their on-screen roles to redefine the status quo of the industry. Let's bring them out. Tiffany Boone stars on Amazon Prime Video's Jordan Peele-produced drama series Hunters, opposite Logan Lerman and Al Pacino. The show, on which Boone plays Nazi hunter Roxy Jones, has been renewed for a 2nd season. Up next, she will star opposite Nicole Kidman and Melissa McCarthy in Hulu's limited series 9 Perfect Strangers. Ariana DeBose appeared alongside Lin-Manuel Miranda in the original cast of Hamilton. Last year, DeBose starred in Ryan Murphy's The Prom on Netflix, and up next, she will be seen in Steven Spielberg's West Side Story and Lorne Michaels' musical Apple TV Plus comedy series Schmigadoon. Javicia Leslie stars in the CW's Batwoman, making her the first Black Batwoman. The series premiered in 2019 as the first superhero series in television history to feature an avowed LGBTQ character as the central character, with Leslie introduced last fall as the show's new lead, Ryan Wilder. And we have Ashley Park, who is a Grammy and Tony-nominated actress who can currently be seen starring in Netflix's Emily in Paris, which is just beginning production on its 2nd season. Ashley originated the role of Gretchen Wieners in Tina Fey's Mean Girls on Broadway in 2018 and has reteamed with Fey for the Peacock comedy series Girls Five Eva, which launched this month. Thank you so much for joining me today, ladies. After going through all of your roles, I'd love to start off with one question for all of you, which is, what is a particular storyline from one of your recent projects that you think best exemplifies what you want to see more of on screen these days? So if we can start, Ariana?
I would say, in and of itself, my casting as Anita in West Side Story is moving things forward in its own right. I identify as an Afro-Latina. I'm biracial. My mother is white. I'm also queer. So I'm checking so many different boxes that aren't normally represented, specifically in how the industry casts in regards to Latino characters. So I think that's really exciting, but also because Anita herself is, she's a standout character. She's so fiery, and growing up watching Rita Moreno, that's a very specific lived experience that is portrayed on screen in the 1961 film. Whereas in this adaptation, in this reimagination, I got the opportunity to infuse another layer to the character being a Black presenting woman and a Latina. So I would just say, while I'll be honest, I haven't seen the film yet, and neither has the world. I'm very excited about it, though. I think that storyline, watching a rebranding of an all-American woman in this embodiment, is really exciting.
Oh my God, I can't wait.
Tiffany?
Yeah, I'd say playing Roxy on Hunters is really interesting and really important because, she's pretty much a superhero, not like Batwoman, not that big of a deal, but she's her own kind of superwoman in that, like, she's kicking ass, she's sexy, she's a mom, and I think she presents really kind of hard, and the strong Black woman that, this idea that people think of Black women, that we're impenetrable, that we're here to save everyone. And through the first season, you see her get really vulnerable. You see her battle with that idea of, like, as a Black woman, am I supposed to save everyone? Is that my job? Is that what, how much do I have to protect myself and my family and put us first? So I think it's just showing a beautiful, sexy, empowered Black woman, but also showing that we're vulnerable too, and that we're scared. And you know what I mean? And so I think those kinds of layers are really important, and I love playing her for that reason.
Ashley?
I think I have to say, well, firstly, I think with Emily in Paris in a fast way, like I grew up on watching shows like that, and, Friends, Sex and the City, all of these shows that I grew up and I learned humor from, and how to be a woman from, and friendships from, and how to be an adult from. I never saw anybody but white people represented, really. And I didn't even realize it until I was now an adult. And I think it just is very meaningful to me that a lot of people can see themselves represented in someone, an Asian person playing a role like this that is not defined by being Asian, but it's just like a really good friend, and it has human qualities, and has a perspective of the world that I do, because she grew up with this navigating similar things that I did, looking the way that I do, and coming from where I came from. And not to be like, oh, another project, but like I just had a very, very small role in a film that I wrapped in Ireland. It's called Mr. Malcolm's List. And I bring it up because I think it's going to be the first Hollywood movie that is 18th century British Regency era, like Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice. That's a completely diverse cast, and not colorblind cast, but color conscious cast. The leading man is Chopin, who is a Black man. And it's just like, Frida Pinto plays the romantic lead, and I have like literally 1 or 2 scenes in it, but that's my favorite era to watch on TV and on film, like forever. Pride and Prejudice is my favorite movie ever, and it was just the one thing that I always counted myself out of, and I was okay with it because it's just all I knew. And the fact that this is happening, and that Emma Hawley-Jones, this director, wanted to cast it this way, I think it blew my mind that it was even happening. So it's very exciting.
Javicia?
I love that Ashley said that when you see some of these like projects, you initially just kind of say, oh, well, I can't be in it, I'm Black, or whatever you are, and it's just, I think that we're moving in a space where I get these audition requests and I can do it. Like, even if it's not written, even if it doesn't literally say African American or someone that's portrayed as Black, like it's just a character now and anyone can play it. And I remember when I got my sides for Batwoman, for Ryan Wilder, they never said a race. The only thing that was important was that the actual actress was a representation of the LGBTQ community. There was nothing else that was necessary for me. And it made me feel like I had a free chance, just like everyone else. I had an equal opportunity, just like everyone else. However, after I did the audition, and even after I did the test, I said to my partner, I was like, I still don't think I'm gonna get it. Like, they're not gonna cast a Black Batwoman. Like, that was literally my mindset, because that's the space that we live in. That's what society, and especially the entertainment community, has been for so long, that a superhero, especially like a Batman, Batwoman superhero, we hadn't seen a Black person in live action play these roles. So I would love to see more of that, obviously being reflected off screen, getting the opportunity to show, people of color and just in different lights than what we normally see. And I don't know, when I think of Ryan Wilder, I think of the fact that, there's one thing when she's Batwoman, but then there's this world that she has to live in as Ryan, where everything does matter. The texture of her hair does matter. The color of her skin does matter. And I think when you play characters like this on TV, it reminds kids that they can be anything they want to be, you know? I'm an adult, so I look at it and I can decipher the differences, but kids don't see that. They just see people and they don't understand what it took to get there, but they just see people, and all you're doing is like, you're showing them, like, it's like a mirror, and that they're able to exist in all, you know, capacities in life. So I don't know if that answers the question.
It definitely answers the question. All of you answered fantastically. So my next one is about, you know, this past year has been such a weird one for everyone in terms of how things have had to shift and what things have looked like behind the camera due to how production went. But I wanted to know how that maybe led for you guys to changes that you've seen in the industry for the better over the last year, not just through the lenses of your own projects, but things you might have seen that you think are really big changes.
Well, I'm just going to say that everyone's silent. So that says something.
Well, I also think we were all muted. So. Is that symbolic or what?
Is that symbolic or what? Just mute beautiful BIPOC women.
I don't have anything to add at the moment. So I'm going to mute myself again. Please. Take
Go, girl.
No. I mean, I just want to clarify what you're saying. Are you saying changes because of COVID, or you're saying changes because of the uprising for Black lives, anti-trans, hate, anti-Asian hate? You're talking about just all of the movements, what has changed over the last year?
Everything over the last year, if you think that has led to. If it hasn't,
yeah.
I want to talk about that as well, but what you think has changed.
You know what?
Yes.
It's funny now everyone has something.
I was making sure before I said what I was going to say, that what you were saying. I do think there's a reason, even though we have things to say, I do think it's interesting that we were all silent at the beginning, because for me, I think it's hard this early on to be like, oh, there's some big change that has happened, because I'm not sure that there has. It's going to take a lot longer to get things moving. What I can say is there's more conversations about this, and that's what's important, right? And I think for myself, specifically the uprising for Black lives, I had already, when the Me Too movement happened, I'd already realized, oh, I can speak up about that stuff. Now there's more of a space. It was still scary, but I had a situation where I could speak up for myself and other people on a set, and very publicly. And I felt more comfortable to do that because of the Me Too movement. Then with the uprising for Black lives, I immediately was like, okay, now those things that I was holding in that I felt were happening on set, those microaggressions, those macroaggressions, that I would just go, that's the way it is, okay, bite my tongue, talk to the other Black people on set and keep it moving. Oh no, now I'm gonna call people out. Because people have to be held accountable. And now we all realize that, like, we're all seeing each other now, right? We all realize this stuff isn't okay. So if I speak up, now something better be done about it. Now it has to start a conversation. So for me, what it's done is allowed me to feel comfortable to speak my truth. So I hope, I think for other actors that I know, that's what it's done for them. Now, are things changing? I don't know. But we're changing, and you're going to have to keep up with us.
I think, like, kind of to piggyback what Tiffany is saying, I think that there's like this unspoken thing amongst, people of color where we know in our position, if we were not a person of color, there's a little bit more leeway in certain situations. But as people of color, we always have to say to ourselves, all right, girl, you're Black. You can't act like that. You can't do this. You can't do that. You'll lose this. And not only will you lose this, you'll close the door for the people behind you, for the people after you. And so, yes, of course, you should always make sure that you're putting yourself in, like, you're doing the best you can do so that you can continue to open doors. But it's this weird thing I'm not sure if I'm the only one that feels like this, where we kind of walk around feeling like not wanting to mess anything up and feeling very much like, thank you, I'm so sorry, thank you, I'm so appreciative, because we understand that this is a change, and this is something where it's like every little thing we do matters, and we don't really have the space to make mistakes. We don't have the space to act out as we've seen other people act out, you know? But I think the part that I'm really scared about as far as what has happened in society over the last year and how it affects our industry is that I don't want it to be used as a source of entertainment. Like, there's a difference when creating conversation, and then there's a difference when you're repeating exactly what's on the news and you're putting it on a TV show and people are sitting down at their table eating dinner while watching more Black blood being spilled in the streets. Like, that is not entertainment for me at all. It's very triggering. It's very traumatic for Black people to continue to watch this. We're having to watch it in the news. And like, I feel like I'm watching just a regular primetime TV show, just trying to get my entertainment in, and we're watching it again. And I think that everyone is trying to figure out how to be on the right side of this, how to be on the proactive side of this, how to be an ally. And I think that the way that that can safely happen, it's not just hiring more people of color as actors, it's hiring more people of color behind the scenes. You know, when I was cast as Batwoman, one of the most important things was, you cannot paint my stunt driver because you can't find a Black female stunt driver. I don't care. Then she's not driving until we figure this out. You know what I mean? So hiring me not only means hiring me, it means you have to hire representation across the board. Hiring me meant you had to hire a Black female stunt driver. You had to hire a Black female stunt double. You had to hire hair that knew how to do Black hair. You had to hire a makeup artist. Those people didn't have to be Black, in my opinion, but they had to know really how to do my hair, how to do my makeup, so that I could feel beautiful like everyone else has the opportunity to feel beautiful, because maybe their look is just more mainstream or they're just more used to it. So it's just like, there's so much to be covered. And like Tiffany said, I think a lot of us were scared in the beginning because we're nowhere near where we need to be to really feel like the change has happened. But I do feel like the change is happening, and I feel very blessed and honored to even be a part of that at all.
Right. Well, I think it's also what, you know, Tiffany said something in terms of at least the conversations are starting now. And it's so funny. I don't know if you three women felt this way too, is when I came into the industry, I really, really actually thought, oh, even the fact that I'm like trying to do this, like the glass ceiling has been shattered. Oh my gosh, like boundaries have been broken. And we realize now so viscerally that we haven't even chipped away at it. And I think that exactly what you're saying is that it has to be like, the one thing that hasn't changed though is it doesn't matter how many people acknowledge and are allies and everything, it's the top down, right? You know, as long as the people at the top who still own everything don't see in the same way or are ignorant, then it's really a moot point. And I think that I hope, like, you know, again, we haven't, the industry hasn't come back. Like, Broadway's still dead right now, first of all. Second of all, as sets come back and everything, there's still the fear of COVID, right? So that's really dictating where a lot of the attention and anxiety on sets is going to right now. And it makes me fearful that other conversations are going to the wayside in terms of prioritizing the precautions that have to go into COVID. But I think that the difference maybe now, hopefully, is that our white ally, like I still don't know, personally and professionally, if I'm brave enough to be able to be put in a situation and be able to speak up. I've been really thinking about this lately, because I think I'm still at a point where the person who walks away from that conversation hurting is going to be me, or the person, like, as soon as I ask for help or point something out, then I'm the problem still. Even if everyone's like, oh yeah, we're supposed to listen to her, I forgot, that's the thing now, right? So the thing that we really, really need, and I'm hopeful about, is all of our white allies especially have to show up and be able to not only listen, but speak up and also be active for us, be thinking outside of themselves so completely that they're already spotting situations for us, the way that we've had to navigate their comfort and how to fit in with them for our entire lives. And I am hopeful about it, because someone mentioned earlier, children, you know, because when we look at this younger generation of actors, when I talk to Alan Kim from Minari, I see that he doesn't see yet the marginalization or the discrimination or the steps that we've had to take, you know, and that's a beautiful thing. He hasn't realized yet how he hasn't seen as many sexy Asian leading men as he has the really not, you know what I'm saying? So like it's a hopeful thing that maybe we are hammering and chipping away at something that'll make it different for people who are younger than us.
Yeah, I co-sign everything that has been said in this circle because it's all incredibly valid, right? And I think Tiffany and Ashley, when you reference that, you know, this is just the beginning. It's like, forgive the Hamilton reference, but it's like legacy. It's planting seeds in a garden you never get to see. But that's sort of the phase it feels like we're in to me. We're planting really powerful seeds. And I agree with Ashley. I think it starts at the top. And I think every single woman on this call is so fortunate to be in circles where we do have access to people who, if we are comfortable and if we are brave, that maybe we can have some of those tougher conversations. Javicia, when you were talking about being in a position with your casting in Batwoman to say, well, with my casting comes choosing, you know, folks who also understand how to do makeup for women of color, so that my stunt double must actually look like me. Those are micro shifts that actually have incredible impact. And we all sit in positions where we can ask for those things, and they are asks that have to be heard, right? And so I agree, Rome was not built in a day, and we are in a space where it will take quite a long time to see the fruits of our labors. But I think, Ashley, when you're talking about doing it for everyone that comes up behind us, for the Alan Kims of the world, we're taking small steps that, again, will have big impact in the future.
Thank all of you guys for your answers to that question. That was amazing. Now we're going to go on to some specific questions about your project, but I just have to say that was a wonderful part of this conversation for me. I'm going to go to Javicia for my first question here about Batwoman. We're getting toward the end of your first season playing Ryan Wilder, playing Batwoman. I wanted to know, since the show has already been renewed for a season 3, we know there will be more of Ryan's story to come. I wanted to know what you've learned over this first season of inhabiting such an iconic role while putting your own mark on the decades-old part, and what you want to carry into season 3 with you.
I think, and I always say this, while Ryan is learning to be a superhero, I'm learning to be a superhero. You know, there weren't any actual other superheroes around me, like act like characters, you know, because sometimes you come onto a show, there are several characters that become superheroes. It was just me. And then I came on a show that was already in its second season. So I was just trying to figure out how I could exist, not just my character, but myself, how I could exist with a new cast, how I could exist with the idea of what this representation meant. And it was a lot at first. Like, it was a lot for me to figure that out. It was a lot for me to kind of separate the expectations that I put on myself and what this meant, and just being an artist and performing and showing up for the life of Ryan, my Ryan life, you know? And so I think I kind of went back and forth for a while. In the beginning, when I was preparing, I was completely in the world. I was completely in the art of it. Then when I started to get my first bit of like negativity, and it was before the show even aired, it was just people that felt like Batwoman couldn't be Black. It kind of hurt me, you know, because some of the comments that were being made that were directed specifically towards me, it kind of hurt me because all I could think was, you guys haven't even given me a chance. The show hasn't come out. We're in October. The show doesn't come out till January. Like, how do you have such strong feelings about something you haven't seen yet, you know? And then I kind of took a break from everything and got back to the art, and that's really kind of supported me through it. But then also, like we talked about just earlier, all of this is happening in the middle of a global pandemic where I'm in Vancouver and I'm not with my family, and I don't have anyone here, you know? And so there's this process of learning how to there's this process of having this beautiful opportunity to do what I love. I love action. I love stunts. I do my stunts. So it's just like literally feels like the biggest and most individualized and direct blessing I could ever have, you know, while not really having any of my comfort here. And so then it started to make me realize the importance of mental health. And that's kind of really where my journey is right now, is that we're all blessed with these beautiful opportunities to play all of these amazing dynamic women. But where is our own support with our mental health in everything that's happening? Yeah, like all of this is happening and I can't be with my family. And every time I turn on the TV, someone's being killed, and I come to set and I have to represent this. And now we're doing stories that mimic what we see in the news. And it's a lot. And it's a lot. And you have a cat in the background, Ariana. That's so beautiful.
Lots of animals. It's weird.
I love it. It was just the most beautiful, like, candy.
Sorry.
And it's a lot. And I just think that it goes to speak towards the accomplishments of everyone that has been able to continue to exist at this moment and to continue to show up. And not just for ourselves, obviously, but for our characters, because showing up for our characters is showing up for everyone that is connected to our characters. So I'm really excited that we get a third season. I'm praying that the borders will be open and I can visit my family and have a little bit more of that emotional mental support here. But I'm also really excited to be able to go into more layers, because a lot of this season has been trying to but trying to figure out the Kate Kane storyline. So going into third season, I think we're going to get a little bit more into Ryan's actual storyline outside of just Kate Kane. So yeah, I kind of went on a tangent.
Thank you.
We love tangents.
We appreciate the tangent. Ashley, I'm going to go to you for your tangent. Emily in Paris is just beginning production on season 2. Mindy really came into her own in the first season while breaking free of her family's expectations and embracing her true passion as a singer in Paris. So what can you tell us about what that means for her in season 2 as she continues her friendship with Emily?
No, we started like, no, because we start filming on Monday. It's our first day, so I don't really know yet. I'm gonna tell you. Okay, guys. Okay, maybe we should cut this out. No, actually, they'll leave it in here. What I'm gonna say. I'm sorry. I think I'm giddy right now. Okay, I'm going to tell the truth. I'm giddy right now because this is not answering your question at all. But I'm sure the three of you, I feel like, I don't even know two of you personally. I'm such a fan, but like, this is like the kind of conversation I want to have over drinks. And this is exactly what you were talking about, is needing like some like healing and like communion and talking in this way. And I'm sure the three of you have also been asked to do every panel there may be for a young BIPOC person. I know it's AAPI month. It's just started today for me and over the past year. And with power comes great responsibility, right? With the platform comes that responsibility, and and it can get so lonely. And I know that I've become very, very, I think tired and exhausted is the wrong word, because it's not that, because that brings a sense of like self-laziness or something. But I am tired of having to speak now that people are ready to listen, because I've lived my entire life navigating so that I can survive and not have to think about this stuff, you know? And the like this panel is one I was so excited about, because I was so excited to be talking to three women who, when I look at you, I already know that we've crossed similar paths and like similar bridges, and we just like see certain things, and I don't know, it's unexplainable, and there's a real beauty to that, and I really appreciate it. And that wasn't the question at all. It was about how, Mindy, I hope that I think it's a character that helped me find myself and my own womanhood in season 1, because of the freedom and the trust that I was given with it. And I think that it's going more in that direction with this season. In terms of like the singing, it was something that was added when I was cast, and I was hesitant about having in there because I didn't want it to be those of us who do musical theater, we love to sing in those shows because it forwards the plot and it opens up the characters and makes them more vulnerable. And I wasn't sure if I was going to do that in this, and they found a way for it to do that. And it was when I watched this show and I heard I saw what they did, it was the first time I'd ever heard my own voice. Because I'd spent my entire life playing characters, and characters usually written for, and usually played by white people, right? For white audiences. And so I had done a really, really, really good job and always did my homework on how to find different singing voices for different characters that would please those people. And this was the show and the character that helped me be like, oh, that's how I sound when I just sing from my heart. And I'm grateful for that. And so I'm really excited. I'm sorry I was like stuttering and freaking out. I think I just also realized that we're starting on Monday, and you know what that feels like when you're like, I don't know. I also haven't visited this character for 2 years, so I don't know. So it's just like a little mental breakdown that you can cut or keep in.
I loved it.
Please
We're
keep
not going to lose any of it. Don't lose any of it. Tiffany, you play the part of Roxy Jones on Amazon's Hunters, a Black woman part of a band of Nazi hunters in America in the 1970s. What is the message of how diverse the team of Nazi hunters and their specific personal motivations for joining the fight against anti-Semitism mean to you?
Well, I think one, from an actor's point of view, getting to be a part of this group of like extremely diverse people that are like, our race isn't like the main part of like our storylines. We're just like interacting, but it's not ignored either, you know? So I think that's wonderful. But just to see a group of people who have all been marginalized coming together, whether it was their fight or not, like for Roxy, she has no connection to, you know, the Holocaust or anything like that. Or for the character Joe, who is Japanese American and was in internment camps growing up. That's not our, you know, that's not our so-called fight. However, we have been marginalized. We have been, we had to struggle. And so we're like, look, for the greater good, let's go find these Nazis and make this thing happen. And I think what's powerful about it is like the importance of allyship. You know what I mean? Like all of us need to band together and realize, especially people of color, need to band together and fight each other's fights and be a united front for each other, because even though we have different experiences, so, you know, like I obviously have a different experience from Ashley. However, I know what that is like when someone is judging you based on the way you look. I know what that is like. You know, I can feel the pain when we're watching these videos of people on the street just harming Asian American people who are walking down the street. No, that person doesn't look like me, but I can understand that pain of that racialized trauma. I understand that. So I hope that people see this like ragtag group of people fighting, you know, Nazis, and realize like, no matter what your differences are, if you band together, you can bring evil down. And it's not as, you know, it's cut and dry as it is on television, of course, but I hope that's the message that people get, and that they see. I mean, it's really corny, but we're more alike than we are different, right? So I think that's
corny.
Hunters.
Corny at all. It's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, it's the truth. So I hope that's part of what people see when they see our little group of hunters.
I hope you get that question asked more, because that's a great answer.
Oh, thanks. I was like, rarely do I get questions I've never been asked before.
Yeah.
It forces you as a person of color to talk about your own support of other people of color, or you know, marginalized communities. And I think that we don't get that a lot. So that was a great question.
Absolutely.
Ariana, I have a question about West Side Story for you. I'm sure everyone saw the teaser, the long-awaited teaser on the Oscars. So I wanted to ask about the fact that you are playing a role originated by Rita Moreno, and you touched on this a little bit earlier, but if you had worked with her at all in crafting your version of legendary role and how you've gone about making it your own. So striking that balance between people are so excited to see Anita, but what does Anita look like for you? And what does Anita look like when you're trying to maybe mimic Rita, maybe you're not. So I just wanted to check about how you approach that.
Yeah, I approach all my work this way, not necessarily just about this specific role, but I also played Donna Summer in the Donna Summer musical, and I could have easily just mimicked Donna. But in both cases, I chose to believe that it did not behoove me to try and duplicate what had already been done, because then what is the point? They've already seen it. People don't need that. They need to see a version of the world, someone that they don't necessarily understand, and be allowed to walk in those shoes. That's why we act, right? What I can tell you about the process of West Side was that I was hired to be an individual. And the first thing I said to Senor Spielberg was that if you don't want to talk about the fact that I'm a Black presenting woman, you should not hire me. And of course, we say things in a respectful way, but the greatest thing that I've found is that if you can just be blunt and kind at the same time, that 9 times out of 10, you'll get what you want. And that's what my relationship with Steven and Rita was built on. They both encouraged me to be my own woman and to make her exactly who I believed she was in my physical manifestation. Because the reality is, you don't know if you're not in this body. And so to be on a set where there was true trust cultivated, it was a privilege. Now, what I can tell you about Rita Moreno, I love her. She's such a fireball, but she was full of grace for me. And we get along because we're both fiery. And we say what we mean and we mean what we say. And the only thing she ever really said to me, well, she asked me first, what do you want to know? And I said, what do you want to tell me? And that was it. She was like, you got this, Nana. You don't need me. And so I literally walked my own path with the character. But I also think that allows me to really stand on my own 2 feet in this pre-existing world of West Side Story. This is a classic. Javicia, when you were talking about entering the world of being a superhero and taking on Batwoman, that is a character that predated you. I really understand what you're talking about when you feel like you're facing a purist lens and no, a Black woman can't play Batwoman, or wow, this is a very different version of Anita we have never seen. And it's scary to be othered, different first. But it's, for me, the experience of that was lonely at times, but it forced me to own my power. And for that, I'm very, very grateful. Because no matter what happens, when the world is given West Side Story, I know that it's an authentic portrayal. You know, like the authenticity in that makes me so proud. And yeah, thank you for attending my TED Talk.
Yeah.
No, I love that. And I think I do it for any of us as artists, and I'm sure all of us can agree to this, is like, that's what we're always chasing, is the, you know, the authenticity of not, you know, of our characters. And I'm so happy that you feel so grounded in that, and that you're right. No matter what happens, you're proud of, I did that. And I was authentic, and I was genuine to my work, and not trying to mimic what's already been done. And you know, like, and some artists are great at that. They're really great mimickers, you know, I don't know if that's a word, but like to be able to stand on your own 2 feet and say that this was my version and this is the version that's going to go down in history as my version. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Lel. Wow. Lady love. That was like, did you see the stroke that just happened on my face? Crazy.
Javicia, I'm actually coming back to you now for a question about, I know you directed the short film Black Excellence, and you've already touched on a little bit about behind the scenes, but I wanted to ask about how directing has affected also your perception of what things need to look like behind the camera from that too.
Okay, so first of all, I am a control freak. And so sometimes in our art, in our world, people like me are actually stronger as directors sometimes than as actors, because as an actor, you have to let go of the control. You have to be able to allow all of the circumstances to influence whatever happens. And that's like sometimes my biggest fear, but I just have always believed in jumping. So I just jump and see what happens. For directing, it's like this weird, I get this weird fix for like all of the things that make me Javicia, which is that I like to multitask. I get off of multitasking. Like I have to have 3 or 4 things happening at the same time in order to feel okay about being awake today, you know? And as a director, that's what my experience was. It was being able to put all of these different pieces together. But my favorite part was being able to comfort and protect and very gently guide the actors, because I felt like I wanted to be the director to them. I wanted to be the director that I always wanted, that I've had, you know what I mean? One that didn't tell me what they, you know, oh, I need you to be sad right here. You know, one that gave me, because if I'm going to do the work as an artist, you can throw me in an emotion, and we do television, so we have to figure it out really quickly. We get a new director every episode, and, you know, but it's always so lovely to have that director that comes to you with the why, you know, not just the action, but the why. And then you are able to sit and put it together and truly support it so that you can have an authentic experience, you know, on set. And I was able to do that. And it was so much fun. And it was so cool to see them feel proud of themselves. It was so cool to watch them watch themselves and be affected. And that movie, that short right now is in film festivals. We just finished a Pan-African Film Festival. We're in a few others. And it's completely ran by women, produced by women, directed by women, edited by a woman. The only person that wasn't a woman was our actual DP. But he was a man of, you know, a Black man. And it was just really cool just to see like these women come in there and give such a respectful set where people felt safe. No one felt, you know, uncomfortable. We always made sure, you know, we protected everyone. And it was such a vulnerable film. And it was really cool to be able to do that. And it showed me, it helps to support for me what my future is, because I want to create, and I want to create on every aspect of creating. I'm starting my production company, but a part of that is also directing, because I want to be able to create more stories that reflect us. Mm-hmm. And I want safe sets, you know, like Tiffany, you did Little Fires Everywhere. And what I love so much about that project was Reese and Carrie using their production company to do it. And as a woman, when you come on these sets and you know that they're produced by women, you feel safer. You don't feel like you're put into this uncomfortable situation or overly sexualized or unheard, or, hey, I'm not comfortable with this, and I don't feel comfortable even speaking up for myself, like Ashley said, you know, because you're scared that you might lose your job if you speak up about this, or you're going to walk away being the one that's hurt. And so all of that makes sense, and all of that is supported. And I think our jobs going into the future is creating content and creating platforms for people to feel safer so that we can continue to make this type of work in a capacity that everyone else has made this type of work. You know, I love how bold and proud they are of their projects, and knowing that they, you know, I did this without ever feeling compromised. And I think it's our chance to feel proud about our projects without feeling like maybe we compromised our values or anything like that.
Totally. Oh, I hope you get to, if you want to, direct an episode of Batwoman. They should yeah. Oh,
so I really want to.
Okay, cool.
That the thing about directing is that I have to shadow a director before I'm able to direct on our show, and that means that I have to have enough of my schedule that allows me the prior episode of shadowing, and then the episode that the director is actually directing. So it will be, it will be more like further down the line. But until then, I'll just keep doing my own thing.
Okay.
You are such a powerhouse. Wow.
Yeah.
So
that's all.
Ashley, I'm coming to you next. You guys are actually doing a really good job of helping me already in the line that I'm going in by responding to the person who was right before you. Ashley, I was going to ask about Girls 5 Eva and reteaming with Tina Fey for that, and what excites you about the project, because it is such a show about girl power, but also dissecting the way that it can be like weaponized and distorted at times to be kind of taken away from women and used to like promote this girl group, and they didn't really know what message they were making back in the day. So I want to know about that aspect of the show for you.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, both in normal life, when if you know me, when you get to know me, and I think in what we do, I feel like humor is such an incredible way of connecting, an instrument into opening up people, into being able to think about other things as well. And I think Tina Fey's projects do that so well. And I saw it firsthand every night, 8 shows a week in Mean Girls. I experienced that. And first of all, it's about a 90s girl band, like girl group. Like that was my dream come true, because I definitely wasn't cool enough to dress like a Spice Girl at the time of Spice Girls, So that's fun in itself. But I think what's really cool about it is another thing we don't think about a lot is ageism as well. And these are, Busy Phillips, Renee Elise Goldberry, Sarah Bareilles, and Paula Pell play the 4 other members of the band in current day. And I think also what you were talking about, Javicia, working with women. I think a couple of years ago, I was like, you know what? I was doing a play, and it was my first time working with both a female director and a female writer. I'd never worked on a project where both were female, and it changed the game for me. I was like, oh my God, my character's the one, we're thinking about how to take care of the female character. And I realized, oh my gosh, that was the actor's job only in other rooms that I've been in, because I had to look out for my character because she was a female, and to have a director and producer and a writer who was already doing that and already had navigated the world that way was just then my brain could open up to the academic parts of playing a part and the artistic parts of it. And it was such a much more fun puzzle to be a part of. But and so Girls 5 Eva too, it was written and created by Meredith Scardino, and just I think I was just I really want to keep working with badass women who are funny and confident. And I got the best 4 big sisters in those women. You really couldn't get people who were more, and just seeing how they interact with each other and and with the crew. I don't know, I think everyone's gonna really love it, just because it is really hardcore humor. But we do I don't know. It was interesting, especially in a time not right after, it's still Me Too movement, but after that has all come to the lens of being at the point of being able to call out things, but not really laugh at them, to really be punching certain things, but to further the conversations that have started now, right? I don't know. I don't know if I answered the question, but
you did.
They're I don't know.
Thank you. Tiffany, you'll be starring alongside Nicole Kidman and Melissa McCarthy in Hulu's 9 Perfect Strangers. For those who don't know, who might be listening, that is based on a book by the Big Little Lies author, Lane Moriarty. We don't know much about the series yet. We've gotten a little cryptic teaser, and it looks spooky. So I want to know how much you can tell me about your part of Delilah and what excites you about the role in this series.
So I can't say a whole lot about Nine Perfect Strangers because I don't want to get in trouble. But the premise is I can say that the premise is that these 9 strangers come to this wellness retreat for 10 days. And Nicole's character is the founder of this retreat. And I am one of the healing practitioners there. And I have a very complicated relationship with her. What drew me to the character, I'd say one that, like, honestly, just knowing the cast, I'm just going to be honest. Like, you're like, oh, Nicole, Melissa, Bobby Cannavale, Regina Hall. I'm in Michael Shannon. So I was automatically like, sure, you can just have me saying hello and goodbye and I'll probably show up on set. But the character, I don't play a lot of like very Zen characters, I wouldn't say. She's like, at least at the beginning, she's very Zen. And like, I'm a very anxious person. So it's like fun to play something different than that. And also I just knew that, you know, she was going to have this crazy kind of journey that she was going to go through. There's some other things that made me want to play it, but I can't say those because I'll get in trouble. So that's about all that I can say about that. Not a very interesting answer. I'm sorry, but I don't want to get in trouble. So that's all I got for you.
Yeah.
We've all seen Big Little Lies, I'm sure, so we know if it's anything like that, you can't say anything.
Yeah, can't say a word.
Ariana, you'll be starring in Apple TV Plus comedy Schmigadoon from Lorne Michaels. The show is teased as a love letter to musicals that also dissects their tropes. And as someone who has such a strong background in musical theater, what's most fun about that? Because it's obviously taking something you grew up in and twisting it around, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It is a love letter to, the golden age of musical theater. What I loved the most from my own experience was my character is a version of Maria from The Sound of Music and Marion the Librarian, So when has this face ever played those characters? Hello. And also getting to sing these glorious new songs Cinco Paul has written. They're beautiful, but they are written in the style of the golden age. We're talking 30s, 40s, this beautiful, beautiful sweeping melodies. There's like a sort of, there's an air about them. They're a little pulled, but they're just, they're beautiful. How do you solve a problem like Maria? You know what I mean? Like it's stunning to have the opportunity to do that, but it's also a show that knows what it is in the way that we make fun of ourselves. Musical theater folks, we take ourselves too seriously. Musicals of the golden age filled with tropes. And with a face like this, it's a lot easier to point them out and be like, see what I did there, in a fun way. But also to learn from it. And that ultimately what I think is so beautiful about Schmigadoon, not only its name, but the point of it is you see so many different potential stereotypes, but they're all learning about themselves in real time. And it's a ride that the audience gets to go on. Self-realization is a real thing, y'all. We talk about self-care, but part of self-care is self-realization, self-work. And these characters are doing that in the construct of a musical, which makes it fun. And also, in the theatrical space, we say when you can no longer speak, you sing, and when you can no longer sing, you dance. And so there are these layers of beautiful realization as the piece carries on through the episodes. And, authenticity, truth, they're themes that show up in a lot of my work. And it's very much prevalent in Schmigadoon, not just with my character of imitate the schoolmarm, but in all the characters, which I think is really important because ultimately, we're in a space and a time, I don't know if you ladies agree with this, probably, where we all have a lot of work to do, right? And I think finding ways, whether it's through music or dance or any form of art, that encourages us to do that work, it's worthwhile. It's worthwhile to spend the time and invest in that self-education. Because, you know, everything we were talking about in regards to, you know, earlier parts of this conversation, like that's how we move things forward, is being willing to participate, to do the work, right? Like that's, again, thank you for attending my TED Talk.
And now I'm going to go into my last question, which is for all of you, and kind of bring us back to where we started, which is, as the next generation of Hollywood, what concerns do you have for the future of the entertainment industry, and what are some steps you guys are taking yourself to try and prevent negative change from happening?
You know, the entertainment industry obviously moves in waves. So I remember when I first moved to LA, I didn't see a lot of Black people, especially in lead roles, but specifically in roles where we weren't a sidekick, where we weren't really filling the quota on the show. You know, that's kind of when I moved to LA, I felt like we were being cast as. And I was speaking to my ally, my white allies, and they're saying how hard it is for them now, because all of, you know, casting is looking for people that are, you know, people of color. And so it's just like, so it just shows kind of like the point that I'm making is that obviously the industry moves in waves. And I think that we need to be a little bit more controlling of this wave and making sure that it's not just a wave. We're blessed enough to sit here and talk, but I think when I see us, I think of the women that opened up the doors for us to even get here. Those were like 4 waves ago. And then it didn't become our time again for another few generations. You know what I mean? Like Dorothy Dandridge, you know, Ella Fitzgerald, like women that literally their work created these opportunities for us that we're now playing them. You know, we think of Billie Holiday and Andra Day playing that character. The amount of time, the difference, you know, that was at a time, because you're playing a musician, an artist who has done so much for us and for our culture. Just doing her art, doing what she loves. Strange Fruit. It was a song that she wrote and that she created out of her own heart from seeing what she saw, but it became a political song to the point that it is the song that imprisoned her. So you see that. And now in 2021, we have an actress playing that. But that wasn't that long ago. And there's so many waves that have happened just in that short amount of time, you know? And I think that's my biggest thing. And that's the thing that I'm kind of scared about, is that we talk about the past like it was 100 years ago. And it wasn't. You know, my grandmother was at Dr. Martin Luther King's speech. So it wasn't that long ago. And I just pray, and I think what I want from us and our generation is that we try our hardest to make sure that this isn't a short wave, and that, you know, one of the things that irritated me the most about last year, and I think that everyone has their different perspectives about it, but the videotape that we saw in May of last year, that wasn't our first time seeing a tape like that. There were so many tapes over the last few years that had come out of that exact type of situation. And, you know, God bless George for creating, he changed the world, you know, unfortunately having to give his life to change the world, but he changed the world. But what infuriates me is we've seen this, and you guys everyone's acting like this is their first time seeing it. So I need this wave to not be a wave.
Totally.
It's exhausting, you know?
Totally.
Go ahead, Ashley.
No, I was completely agreeing with you. And like, in terms of, I think it's so easy not easy, but people like to check a box, right? So even when, I think I was talking to Stephen Canal, who created Pose, you know, and how impactful that show has been for so many people. But something that Stephen was also saying is that people think that we've just checked the box on the trans show now, on the this show now, you know, like Minari did so well. Parasite, great. We got to good job to us. Like we recognize an Asian show, like or an Asian movie. We don't need any more. Check a box, you know. And it's probably the same thing that you've experienced. I know I have hundreds of times in the years past where you go to a casting office and I'm sitting in a room full of white girls, both feeling honored that I'm, oh great, I've like crossed a barrier, but also being like, oh, they got to check their box. And I made it easy for them to check that they brought in that Asian girl. And I know walking in that room, there's not a chance they're considering me, but they did that. So I think that's exactly what you're saying is this can't just be a cute like moment. Like this wave has to be a permanent thing where it's not just like we can have one representation. And I also think it's the danger of tokenism. And I've just started to realize this too. And answering your question, Jennifer, just like, I think what's going to move us forward is also us all realizing how complicit we've been in order to get to where we are, because we've had to play into this system, right? We've had to infiltrate it, in this system. And tokenism, what that did to us was saying there's only room for one, right? What Tiffany, you were saying later, we have to fight each other's fights. Like we have to, I have to be so fucking proud of every Black girl who gets a part, like of every, like, and I hope the same for me because, because we are told that there's only space for one. Literally, me and Ariana met years ago at an audition for Mamma Mia, for an ensemble character, Mamma Mia, that understudied one of the two best friends because, of course, the lead is a white girl. And that's how we met, because there's only space for one ethnic minority, somebody. And that's how we became really good friends, because we experienced that together and we both wanted it, you know? But like, I think that there's the danger, and not only just like us growing up being like, I don't know if you felt this way, but I know for a while growing up, I was like, if I'm surrounded by white people, that means I'm at the top. That means I'm with the best, you know, because that's what we are taught. And it's like, no, I want to be working with women, with people of color, with other Asian people. And that is where I find my value. And that is where I'm able to grow the most. And I just think that cheering each other on was going to really hopefully make this not just a wave, you know?
Yeah. It's so, I'm sorry. I just want to say, it's so funny that you say that when you find yourself around a group of white people that you feel like, oh, I've made it. When I got into this chat and I looked at all of you, I was like, oh my God, like, I can't even believe I'm in a room with these ladies. I'm in a panel with these ladies. Like, you guys make me feel that way, you know? So
yes. And that was me before, to clarify. Yeah. Yes. No, like I yes. But isn't that amazing that like we can like, because I don't think I couldn't, that's what makes me hopeful. Like 5-10 years ago, I couldn't have imagined that. And that like, it's completely that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, 100. And I feel like since you were talking about it, you referenced it so beautifully, but infiltration, like I'm just going to harp on it for a second. We've had to infiltrate white systems in a way, you know, and it's interesting when I was talking about like self-work, like being able to have that important conversation with myself about proximity to whiteness, and that actually there's nothing wrong with how we, many women, have had to navigate the spaces in order to be where we are, because now is the time where we get to make change, right? And also call out the fact that we shouldn't have had to do that.
Yeah.
That we should have never been put in this position to have to say, yes, I have what I have. I've worked incredibly hard for what I have, but I had to navigate the system to get here because there was not a system that actually made space for me, you know? And that is, I don't know. I think a lot about that because I struggle sometimes with it. Part of my self-work, you know what I mean? Not feeling bad about some of the opportunities that I have, because it's been my dream to be in the room that I'm in, right? And also part of my mission, and I know it's y'all's mission too, is to make more spaces for more of us. That's literally, it's part of our job as quote unquote public figures now. It's like, how can we make more spaces for us? But I would say as far as fear around the moment we're in regards to the industry, I get the being worried about it's just checking a box. I totally get it. But again, that's why I think it's so important for us to use the spaces we're in now to speak to people who are hopefully listening and receiving. Like, I don't know about you ladies, but I feel so, I won't say lucky, because I don't think it's luck. I'm really excited to have the opportunity to talk to heads of production companies, to talk to writers who have been commissioned to develop work so that we can shift what has been the norm. Like, that excites me. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I think instead of necessarily focusing on the fear, maybe like reframing. Like, I'm trying to reframe what I can actually do to move it forward. In the same way, Javicia, you being a director, you know what I mean? Like, straddling that line of being in front of the camera and behind it. Like, that to me is just so exciting because you're doing the work in both lanes. And that is amazing. Like, every single woman on this panel, every character we take is so drastically different. We don't do the same thing twice. And that's really important too, because people like to put you in a box and say that you're just one thing. No woman is just one thing, you know? And we live in an exciting time to be able to send that home, right? Because we're different faces. You know, I grew up, well, I'm on a soapbox, great. I grew up watching fabulous white women do their thing. And the crazy thing is, probably, again, I had a wonderful childhood, raised by my mother's side of the family. We are predominantly white. The beautiful part of my upbringing is that I did not realize that there was a difference between me and Meryl Streep, because that's just how I didn't get it, right? I didn't get it until I was older. But I will say the benefit to not getting it was being able to say, she's doing it. Diane Keaton's doing it. Nicole Kidman's doing it. I'm going to try and do it. And I thank God that that is how I received that. Because I will say, if I had not had that experience, I would have not gone down the path that I've gone down. Does that make sense? Like, you know what I mean? Which actually, I'm really proud of myself for saying that on this panel, because I was nervous to talk about it. But I was like, cool, Band-Aid, rip it off, just say it. But I'm grateful that that's the experience that I had, because I really do believe this. If I had realized that there was a difference between me and someone like Meryl Streep, I would not have pursued my dreams. Mm-hmm. And that's scary to realize that there are young people who see drastic differences between what's on the screen and who they are. And they are told that they cannot. Like, mm-hmm. I don't know what planet I was on, but I'm glad I was there. You know?
Yeah.
Tiffany?
Yeah, wow. Everything you guys are saying, I was kept being like, I should have been writing down notes, because I agree with every single thing you guys said. To start with your first part of your question, my fears for this business, the list doesn't stop. And listening to you, Ariana, being like, I'm not going to focus on the fears of it. I'm going to, reposition that thinking. I need to take a note on that, because I live in the fear a lot, mm-hmm. And I feel a lot of weight from everything that is going on. I feel so much weight. And I was talking to a Black woman director, a friend of mine, that was talking about, she's making her first film, and she is kind of having an easy time making her first feature. And she was like, it feels wrong. As a Black woman, it feels like I should have to struggle to make this thing happen, because everyone around me, when they were making their first features, they had to do this. They had to sell their car. They had to live on the street. They had to do all of this to make this happen. Why is this happening to me? And I feel like for so many of us, so many women of color, we feel like we're not worthy of so many things. We feel like we're not worthy of the things. If something happens, it's like, why me? Am I good enough? I mean, I deal with that every single day. And I feel the weight of all of that, because for me, to think that there would be a little girl who is like Ariana and sees, and it's like thinks she can do everything. You know what I mean? Like, thinks they could do everything. They can look at me and think that they could do X, Y, and Z because of that. Mm-hmm. Or a fresh actress, coming out of college, coming out of, drama school and being like, all these doors are open, wide open because these ladies right here did some of that kicking. And so my fear is that for some of us, it's going to continue to be really, really hard because of that responsibility. And there are times when I am so exhausted from that responsibility. Like when I'm on a set and I'm like, are y'all serious? Mm-hmm. Do I really have to have this conversation with you? Do I really have to sit in my trailer and cry and call my manager and figure out how I'm going to have this conversation with this producer or this director or blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to be the angry Black woman. All of that, every time I feel that, I go, yeah, you're going to have to do it again, girl. Because one day there's going to be a girl who doesn't have to do that because you and all the other women that are doing it right now are doing it. Mm-hmm. So I know all of you are doing that work, and there's so many of us that are. And so that fear I have, I'm just going to have to keep pushing through it, because at the end of the day, it might be hard for us, but my daughter, I really hope none of my kids want to be actors, but let's say they do. Let's say our kids do. My daughter, my nieces, the people who are coming up after us, all the shit that we have to, excuse my language, but all the shit that we have to put up with, hopefully they won't have to. So we're doing what we have to do. And I'm so inspired by all of you ladies. And
Man, yeah.
Thank you guys for that. That was an amazing note to end on. Thank you, Tiffany, Ariana, Javicia, and Ashley. And a big thank you to our audience for tuning in. And remember, it's still not too late to upgrade your ticket at the link below for access to our day 3 workshops and mentorship. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, ladies. Again, this was fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Stacey Martinet with Adobe. We're here at the WrapB conference to talk about mentoring, empowerment, and women making it happen. And I am here with 3 of the most interesting, inspirational, creative women out there, Dana, Asia, and Natalie. Thank you all for joining me. We're excited to hear from you and learn from you. So I want to start off with just a simple question. Dana, maybe you can kick it off. Like, what have you been up to lately?
Well, I've been up to organizing and rest. Last year was a really intense year for many reasons, but even though we were in the middle of a pandemic, I was pretty much working the whole time. And I was traveling 3 or 4 times a month. And it was just it was a lot. And this year I just got off a few jobs that were travel based. And now I really don't have another job lined up that's that I have to actually shoot something for, which is nice. And I'm just organizing, cleaning, exercising, sleeping, reading, riding my Peloton, just taking time for myself and trying to create a work-life balance, which I really don't have. So that's what I'm doing right now.
Wow, you have interesting stories because you have been really out there in so many places, capturing so many iconic moments. While many of us have been at home just following all of your work. So thank you for that hustle and inspiration, but I think it's good, right? It's good for all of us to get that balance of restoration. Yeah. And Asia, what have you been up to? I know so much, but it'd be good to hear what's top of mind for you.
Yeah. So, we, for Neon Cowboys, we make light up apparel and accessories, and we do a lot of things that are Americana themed. And so with the pandemic, it's been really difficult because at first it was no one really knew what was happening. And we actually manufacture most of our products in China. And so we were impacted like back in November, which is before it kind of came to the States and had its trickle down effect. So we really were forced to just like completely pivot and start to like launch all these new products and expand our entire product offering. And because everyone was already stuck at home and they were kind of like wanting an escape already, a lot of our fans kind of clinged to us and were purchasing online like we've never seen before, because they were looking for a way to like bring light into the home and have like a different type of energy shift there. And even like just partying. So we came out with things like even as simple as like cowboy hats for your pets so that you could like party with your quarantine pal, you know? So it's been really fun. We've just had to really like kick it into gear lately, because even before the whole Black Lives Matter piece, you know, the company was really just about the hats, and I wasn't necessarily the face of the brand. I didn't really, you know, show up to a lot of places outside of small interviews here and there. And because of, you know, people kept asking about like, what is a Black experience? And we service a really diverse community everywhere from like, you know, Caucasian people, but also to LGBTQIA plus and like just, you know, a lot of different minorities in space. So it's been wild.
It's and it's been amazing to see that journey. And I think also bringing people so much joy in a time when they really need it. So thank you. And I know there's probably so much behind the scenes that had to happen with like business continuity and just keeping everyone feeling resilient. So we could maybe go into a little bit of that in a minute.
Yeah.
And Natalie, I know you have been so busy, you know, your work with Sundance as an Ignite Fellow, with Film Festival recently. So, you know, tell us what's been going on.
I think this year has been, like you said, very difficult for everyone around the globe. In Hong Kong, we're really lucky that at least COVID hasn't impacted us as severely as I think other countries. But I think the strange parallel, though, that emerged, I think, last year is that it's, you know, this health crisis isn't just a health crisis. It's colliding with a lot of, like, systemic, political, like, all of it is kind of erupting at once. So for Hong Kong, it's very much been, you know, people are still reeling from the events from 2019. And so a lot of the hard thing has been trying to figure out creativity-wise, you know, my work now is in documenting kind of the aftermath and still ongoing. Like I'm working on my first feature documentary right now. Wow. But it's just difficult because it's so sensitive now to do this kind of work. And I think, so, I mean, in a way, when I was thinking about these questions, it was a lot of me trying to figure out how to articulate these things that I want to say nowadays, and how quickly that's changing. So if what I'm doing now is a lot of that on the personal level, like trying to navigate like what does filmmaking mean in this context now and how to adapt as it changes this year and in the near future.
It's, I mean, been a difficult time is understatement, right? It's hard. I think that's why actually all of your work is so important, and more important than ever, is to capture and communicate in different formats what we're all experiencing. And so as we're trying to process all of this, and for women of color, like layers on layers that you're working through, like the long time inequity and discrimination and trying to push through and be a beacon of light and hope. If you're not trying to do that, let me tell you, you are. Like, how are you finding inspiration and creativity?
For us, you know, we primarily work with lights and fashion. And so with fashion in general, there's usually a calendar in terms of when collections come out. And because it's been such a different year and people haven't been able to go to fashion shows and kind of work on that same calendar, it's kind of been on the designers and the companies to, like, you know, work on their next sprint, I guess, on their own time. But because we work with lights, we in a way we're kind of limited in terms of what really sparks that inspiration, because there's only so many lights currently on the market, you know, which of course are mostly produced in China. So we will look through like a catalog of like different manufacturers that produce anything from like light bulbs to neon signs to twinkle lights, and then figuring out how can we implement that into garments that maybe are something that's a little bit different than what people would see, and how do we just make that a little bit more like high end. So we've kind of just started to go into, how do we create a collection that's more for couture?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So interesting. And there's so many facets that you have to bring into. Natalie, what about you? How are you finding inspiration or just continuing to have that creative drive during what has been a difficult and somewhat isolating time?
I mean, I think the fact that so many festivals now are moving online, I think has been huge for me, like creatively. Like being able to participate in Sundance was one thing, but just even for everyone, this was the first time they opened it to quite globally almost. So meaning that so many films that rarely get seen by so many people now, it's just a simple click. It's like watching Netflix, So it was really nice to be able to like carve out windows of time and get together with creative partners and just sort of plunge ourselves into watching films again, like, and really it's not just watching it as well. It's like really being able to criticize and understand what we want to draw from and have debates and all of that. I think I miss so much because that's such a communal feeling. And I think there was just so much excitement, I feel like, built around these festivals. And I feel like so many people are now embracing that kind of hybrid format. And I hope it kind of, the model of like allowing more people access to seeing great work just continues post pandemic, if I dare say that word. But just, I think that idea of like inclusivity really makes sense in this digital format. So that has been really inspirational for me because
and transcending time zones.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I hope that there's a humanity that remains, right? Like you have everyone from icons and CEOs, and it's like everyone's on a Zoom call, everyone's seeing their house, like everyone's got stuff going on in the background. And I think that breaking down some of those barriers will be helpful as we evolve together as a society. And so Dana, for you, like you said, you've been out in the world, you've been doing a lot of things. So now that you're home and trying to restore a little bit, how are you thinking about creativity and getting some inspiration or not?
I do tend to shut my brain off when I'm at home because it's just, you get tired. But one thing that I'm trying to do, like I said, earlier, is have like a work-life balance. And I just started taking opera voice lessons weekly. I sang opera and choral music for 10 years when I was growing up, and just to have that creative outlet again and that challenge has been really fun, and just something that's not like work related. Even like within like watching TV or movies or like looking at photo books or whatever, it's still kind of like work related to a certain extent. Just like having something that's like not visual. Just, but I think in my work, the inspiration that I found is kind of going back to my roots of the abstraction that was like in my early work, and like with bodies and shapes and making those kind of like very interesting like shapes within my work, even when working with like celebrity or working with brands, is kind of really pushing that, because I feel like, it's really important to make sure that your voice is heard, and that, when you're making work, that it's not a complete representation of somebody else's ideal. Because sometimes people will hire you for your aesthetic, but then they want you to dumb it down completely when you're on set. So, and then like this flip side to that is that they could be really unhappy with it later, because they're like, oh, well, we like wanted Dana's aesthetic, but this is like really boring. But it's like, because of the direction you were giving me on set, I was just dumbing it down. So so now I'm just like making sure that I'm just pushing, you know, that I'm like, you know, trying different things, that I'm, you know, pushing my subjects, that I'm, you know, I'm always kind of like, you know, like people, the creative director, whoever, will give me some direction, and, you know, I'll do what they ask, but then I'll like always make sure that I'm getting what I need first, because ultimately they probably will end up going with what I wanted, with what I've done. But like, but I just want to make sure that like I'm not like watering things down, because it also makes me like question myself after the shoot. Like, I'm like, why did I do that? You know, if I did it a lot. I never do it all the way, like whatever it is that they want to do. But I just, if I felt like I could have done more, then it's really disappointing. So I just make sure that I'm fulfilled as much as possible within any work, whether it's commercial or editorial.
Yeah. So in light of all that, as you think back on your, you know, your careers, which obviously you all have a big runway, but, you know, getting started, or maybe it's something recent, was there a breakthrough moment, or, you know, a project where you felt like you were finally being seen as, you know, the creator and the person you wanted to see within your field? I think, you know, as our audience thinks about their own passions and creativity and careers, it's, you know, it's a grind, right? And so it's easy to see people who you feel you have made it, but there's always the story behind that story. So curious if you all could share a little bit about that, of coming up and trying to break through.
I mean, I've kind of had a very winding road, and you know, I made work in a bubble for 6.5 years. I was just self-assigning, not really having any, you know, editorial work, or definitely like no commercial work. And I think that was actually very helpful. At the time, you really want to definitely be recognized for your work, be recognized for the efforts that you're putting in for your artistry. But I had time to really develop my aesthetic without outside forces and influences. And I think that was just like the most important thing that came out of that struggle. Because if I had had early success doing work that was like mediocre, which a lot of, you know, that does happen to people, like work is mediocre, they get early success and they don't grow. And the work is still just boring. So I think that it's really important to make sure that your aesthetic is fleshed out. Don't worry about, you know, success or whatever that is, or being acknowledged. Eventually that'll happen. You just have to continue to make work, like, you know, and not give up. I think a lot of people don't have the stamina for a creative career. Because, you know, they're like, it's been a year, it's been 2 years, nothing has happened, I'm just going to go get an office job or whatever. And not like, you can get an office job, but like completely giving up your artistry because it's been only like a year or two. It took me 6.5 years to have a big break. And I wasn't like, you know, at the time I was like on the verge of thinking like, maybe I should just quit, because, you know, I would see my work copied by like different brands and different magazines, like literal very specific things that I was doing, like physically with people's bodies being, you know, being copied. And I'm just like, what's the point? Because I'm like poor, I'm, you know, struggling. Like, it's just, you know, what's, you know, like I'm making work for other people at this point because nobody's hiring me, and finding out that other brands had my work on their mood boards, but not hiring me. So all of that can be very disheartening, and I totally understand that. But yeah, you just have to like continue and really develop what it is that you're trying to say with your work, and not like leaning on other people to validate. Like, I'm not a fan of critique. If you don't have anything nice to say, I don't want to hear it. So I think, you know, like I don't give other artists, you know, critique because I feel like something that I don't like could be the thing that they expand upon and makes their work the most fantastic thing ever. So I just feel like it's really important willing to just like whatever it is that you like to do, just do it. If you like, really harsh, colors, and maybe somebody you're asking for critique doesn't like that, then like don't dumb your work down because you're trying to like fit into somebody else's like style or like aesthetic. Most people don't have any taste, to be honest.
Right. Well, that's right. And it's all relative.
It is very relative. So, trust yourself, trust your own taste, and that's what's going to take you far. So.
Yeah, and I think that's like universal advice for whatever career or personal pursuit is just like trust your instinct, follow your passion, and like you just got to keep going. Like the hustle is real.
Very.
Natalie, what about for you? Breakthrough moments.
I mean,
aha moments.
I think definitely getting the fellowship with Sundance and Adobe, and then after a few months, the same film I submitted to get into that got into Sundance. So I think this year for me has been, really transformative. And I mean, I feel really just awkward being here because I know like a lot of people here are definitely, how do you say, like I would look up to them. So for me, I'm really honored that I'm even included in this conversation. And I think just that for me, yes, it was validation from an institutional standpoint to a degree, but also like the story in the film I submitted was so small and intimate and conceived on such a, I went to film school and this was a project that kind of began on the fringe of it. Like I was learning all this stuff about how to make a film in a very industry kind of way. And I'm so grateful for that experience and the skill sets I've gained, but I know the part of me that really wanted to speak out about certain things didn't align very much with what with what school was trying to teach me. So in a way I gave myself an outlet, and those seeds that I planted over a few years eventually became the projects and the films that I made that got me here. So in a way, getting recognized for that felt really, really validating because it didn't have to be, a film that was a big budget or had, any sort of star value, or I had zero reputation whatsoever. And yet I think something resonated. And I think that to me is always going to be something to remind me going forward. Like I have to keep digging deeper into that voice, I think. Yeah.
Doing it your own way.
Yeah.
And what about for you, Asia? What's coming to mind?
I guess I was thinking of two things when Dana was speaking, which she reminded me of this quote that I really love from Dean Kamen, who's like the inventor of the dialysis machine and the Segway, among other things, first. But he says, like, in 20 years will be an overnight success. And I think that is like my favorite quote ever, because it definitely is like that long grind of just iteration and perfecting your craft and staying true to who you are, and knowing yourself. And then the other one was, you reminded me also of Neil Gaiman, who is, a writer, of course, but in his speech, he talks about like, just making great art and always putting the art as the priority, because if you take jobs and gigs for, the money or whatever, you're probably going to be disappointed in the art that you create rather than, making something that you really want to see in the world. So those are just two things that I always think about when we're building, because I don't want to, like you were saying, like kind of water down what you want to create just because you're trying to meet a deadline or appease somebody. But in terms of like when I felt like maybe the success that I had hoped for has, been delivered or something to that regard, I would probably say when my hat got patented, I felt like that was just like a stamp of like,
that's awesome.
We did it. And I think a lot of that is like, of course, like a lot of entrepreneurs, I grew up just selling, lemonade stands to jewelry to whatever I could as a kid. And and had always like kind of made different products and put things together that maybe wasn't on the market yet. And I think when I first started out with this hat, it was really hard to articulate like, oh, it's going to be a hat that glows like a neon sign that you can wear. And people were kind of giving me like, you know, the response of like, why would that be? Why would people really want that? Or why would that be something different that is like unique and proprietary? And so that patent took me, I think, 4 or 5 years to get approval. And so when that happened, it was like, I, you know, called the parents, of course. So.
And now you have like celebs repping your brand, right? I mean, it's happening.
Yeah, well, the celebrity thing is interesting because my first customer was Miley Cyrus. So before I actually had a product, she had pulled the prototype. So, and it's also my second business. So I've already kind of grown up in that world because my dad is also a couture designer. So I grew up in fashion and celebrities and red carpets, but I think, yeah, just the fact that I could technically say I'm an inventor now was the thing where I was like, okay, it is legal. I am in the book.
You are legally an inventor.
Yes.
As does the U.S. Patent Office.
Exactly.
Awesome. I want to go back to something Natalie said. Natalie, you said you feel a little awkward being here. You know, just given there's people here that you look up to. And I think, you know, it's important to remind all of ourselves, including everyone watching, that you probably are an inspiration to people you don't know, whether your friends, your family, people who are following you work you haven't met. But at the same time, it is hard to take that long view, right? Especially in a social media world where everything's looking so fresh on Instagram for people. And so, you know, balancing that and imposter syndrome or like that lack of confidence is something as women that, you know, we've now discussed and researched that exists more than for men. And so I remember something Viola Davis said actually, which was that fear never goes away. Right? If you're going in to pitch something, if you have a big project, like no matter how successful you are, no matter how many awards you have, like you still feel a little bit of that fear and insecurity when you're about to do something that's important to you. And so I wonder if you would share a little personally, I know it's a little vulnerable, about maybe some of those feelings of insecurity or imposter syndrome and how you've worked through it or not. Because at least I've had that many times in my career in life and still do in some situations.
I think absolutely just the people around you. I think you know, every time you have imposter syndrome, there's the person next to you that either you're collaborating with or loved ones who will always remind you kind of, you need that external voice to fight the internal voice off, I think. And I think maybe over maybe along, if you, like you said, like Dana said, creative life takes a lot of stamina. And I think if a person is able to ride through all those years and build that skin and keep fighting that voice off, I think they will build resistance eventually, probably. But I think for me, it's always been just that voice fades away when I'm surrounded by people who inspire me. And sorry, needed water. And at the same time, just you kind of, especially if you're surrounded by powerful women who are creating, it's almost like you do enter this sort of just totally different mindset where those rules don't apply anymore. That conditioning kind of does recede a bit because you no longer have to ask yourself, is this possible? Because you're already doing it. So I think for me, it's just that community is so crucial. And the constant doing, almost like the way, because when I started pursuing camera, I remember obviously the first thing you register is there's not a lot of women doing camera. Well, not a lot of women holding cameras, touching lights and working with, you know, electricity. All of that stuff I remember was so intimidating for me. But once I started seeing women around me do it, it just became like a non-question. Like there's no more hesitation because people are doing it. So I think the action is really important. And of course, the opportunity is the kind of incredibly important part where we have to keep giving each other opportunities to do things. So other people who we don't see get to see it, and the ripple effect just keeps going.
That's right. That's right. Dana?
I don't necessarily think that I suffer from imposter syndrome mostly. I think it mainly comes when it's not imposter syndrome, it's just like I look at other people's work and I'm very inspired by it. And I'm like, well, they could have done a better job than me, or their like work is stronger than mine. And then it'll go into like, oh, like, I don't like anything that I've done, which then I'll look at my work and I'm like, you've done really amazing things and your work is actually really good. It's just, I don't know if I want to call it imposter syndrome. I just like, as an artist, I feel like I'm never satisfied. And I think that you shouldn't be. I think if you're satisfied with what you're doing, you're not going to like move forward or grow at all. So like most of the things that I shoot, like I like it. I don't love it. I always know that there's room for improvement, or I could have done something better, or I could have pushed harder in some way. So I think that's a good thing. I don't necessarily think that the whole like the comparison thing is helpful. I do have a friend, like one friend who's my studio manager. So it's just like, you know, he's my friend, and he also like, you know, when I'm sort of like going into those places of like, oh, like their work is so great and like I need to like get it together, I need to push harder. He's like, you know, you've pushed, you're great, like just, you know, chill. So that's like, you know, really, that's helpful to me. And then there was another part of the question that I don't remember.
It's okay. I mean, I think that was, you know, that was really insightful about like thinking about the difference between, we feel maybe not an imposter, but like you're not satisfied, and that's the motivation, right? That's what keeps you going. Because if you were satisfied, you'd probably do something else.
Yeah, and I think, you know, being satisfied leads to mediocrity. So, and I know, I guess I keep like saying that word, but I think that there's a lot of like mediocrity that is praised, and I think that people that are, you know, not mediocre, that are making really interesting work, that haven't had an opportunity for success, that can be really disheartening to see people that are, you know, making mediocre work, you know, gain success. And it's like another reason why people kind of like give up. But yeah, I still think, you know, not being satisfied is important.
Yeah. Okay. Asia, any thoughts on the topic?
Oh yes, imposter syndrome. Yeah, I think I definitely had it early on, where I was like, you know, doing more speaking engagements, and I was pretty shocked. I did the Adobe campaign for Hulu. And so, oh, it was so fun. Yeah, thank you. But it was one of those moments where I was like, I guess we're here now, you know? And I think some days I feel like that, but I think the patent is really what made me just feel like no one can really take that away from me now. Even when it expires or, you know, whatever, it was just kind of like, at least I have this degree, and essentially that I was the first to think of this, or not think of it necessarily, but the first to like bring it into the existence of this world. And I think, and when I started to, like recently, I have always looked up to Sophia Amoruso, who is like the CEO of Nasty Gal, Girl Boss, and now Business Class. And I took her class her first cohort, I guess, and did really well through the class and learned a lot. And then she came by the studio last month and like just came and met me for the first time. And that was probably the most recent moment where I was like, and I guess we're here now. So it's just like slowly, you know, just like Natalie was saying, it's like you're like slowly growing that skin and slowly getting more comfortable, and having the experience of like, and I don't like to think of it as like climbing a ladder, because I don't really necessarily think that's what it is, but I think it's like we're, our reach or our art is expanding in areas like you said, where it's like we don't even know who we inspire at all. Like I wake up and I have a team here, and some days I'm just like freaking out because I'm like, oh my gosh, not enough's getting done, or I want to work on those projects, and they're just like, you already did it, you're already there, like just like Dana said, chill and just kind of almost appreciate the art that's already been created and know that more is coming. And when people, like you're saying, use your stuff for mood boards, like I definitely have a lot of that. And I have a lot of where people are making like, knockoff companies and making like their own versions or whatever. But I think, and that definitely will ding a day, like, a day will be gone where I'm just like, so frustrated. But then on the other end of it, I'm like, okay, well, if I think about it in the regard of like, I've created this product that, on an international level where people are feeling like, oh, this is a theme, or this is a party, or this is an entire vibe or mood. That is nice, but it's hard not to feel like totally wrecked when people don't necessarily know where that source came from. And I think that's why doing things like this is helpful, because people can hear from the creator, people can see us and see that we might be from a different minority than they thought, or I'm Black and Chinese, and so even just that is different for people, and so I think that's probably my points on like imposter syndrome. And it's interesting. I think also too, traveling internationally is different too, where you just show up at, in China and you're just like, I own the business. And then that's a whole nother sense of like, where they're just like, okay. Like, so.
Yeah. I mean, each of you shared that, having a strong support system, and getting in touch with those people when, you need to talk through some of that. And then I think finding joy in what you're doing and like reflecting on the impact you've made to date to pick yourself up. But, some days are just lost, as you said, and that's okay. That's sounds like part of the process.
Right.
Part of the process. So this is a conference about mentoring and connecting. And I wonder if you could share some of the best advice you've ever received, or something that you've learned along the way that you want to share as advice to up and coming female creators, inventors.
I think it's important to like really start, and also just reiterating what Dana said about the creativity, like the longevity of that. Like you should never expect it to be anytime soon. Like you should start immediately, like day of, like hearing this, and then you should expect 10 years. And I think that would as a millennial, it's really hard to do that, because of course we're used to like instant gratification. And like you said, with like just Instagram feed, and you see everyone who's like already, crafting their beautiful work or lifestyle or whatever it is you want to do on their feed. And so you're only seeing the highlights. And that's fine. You're building your highlight. You shouldn't necessarily compare that to your journey, because you're still building it. And I really think that like as soon as you have an idea, just start writing it down, sketching it out, hacking it together, gluing it together, stapling it together, like whatever you can do to just have something to show somebody else and be like, here's something that was in my mind and I have now put it into this tangible thing. And even for my business, when I started, up until last August, it was just me and my boyfriend doing everything. So like this whole new thing of like, oh, now we have a team, like that is all very much in the last 6 months. So we were doing everything for like all of the press that we got during COVID and during BLM. That was just, him shooting me. So it's just like, you're still iterating. You still have to understand that you're not going to necessarily be where you want to be, but that is the journey that is allowing you to become that person you're trying to grow into.
Yeah. And nurturing your idea. I like how you said that. Just like keep nurturing it. And that nurture might be 25 years.
Yes.
And that's part of it. That's part of it. What about you, Natalie?
I think there's been quite a few moments where people would tell me very, like earlier on when I was trying to really just start out, even just the way I presented myself, I would get a reaction that was kind of like, you don't apologize for yourself, or like don't apologize for, I don't know. I think it was a very specific moment, but once I had this, like, I think a coffee with someone that I really wanted to get to know and pick their brain. And I think in the email I had drafted to cold email them, it was the tone of it, I just kept basically saying like, sorry, I'm bothering you. Like, is there any time that you would even like squeeze, like a little meeting with me? I know I'm just, and there were just so many apologies that embedded within, that I didn't even notice. It was so unconscious that the first thing she said to me was like, okay, first of all, like, stop. Like, you need to stop doing that. And I remember the way she put it was so blunt, and it like stuck to me. And I think beyond the context of trying to ask someone else for a coffee, I think I'm trying to really apply that in a lot of different ways of, we need to be present when we're doing our work. And if we don't even believe in ourselves to be there, even though I know I did exactly that earlier on when I said, blah, blah, blah. But I mean, it's like, you do have to own it, like, as soon as you can. And it might take a while to get to that point. But once you're there and you register it, then I think it really changes, the way people react around you. And then suddenly you feel like, oh, okay, I do have something to bring to the table. And I think that's such an important starting point, if anything.
Yeah, and that's a journey. And people talk a lot about confidence, but I think there's really something to just like passion for what you're personally doing that, inspires people and wants them to be around it. And so if you can find that and own it yourself, it can be a game changer, as it has been for you. And Dana?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like, what you mentioned, Natalie, about apologizing and just, I feel like as women, especially, we apologize for breathing. And whenever I feel the need to say, I'm sorry, I say thank you. And whenever, especially like, photographers that are assisting me or just anybody in my realm, whenever they're like apologizing to me for like anything that's like nonsensical, I'm like, there's no need for you to apologize. I think it's really important for people to believe in themselves, to be assertive, especially like when you're in these spaces that are very much like male dominated. I think that sometimes women, not even just women, but I think that like that can happen to us where we're like, oh, like, I'm just grateful to be here. Don't want to step on any toes, whatever you think. And like, that's just not the way at all, because you want people to respect you and to understand that like, if you're in the position of photographer or cinematographer or designer, whatever position it is that you're in, you're actually leading the ship, regardless of whoever else is there. Like, you're setting the tone, and you're setting the tone for how people respect you and how they respect others on set or just in life. So like, that's just always how I view it. Like, I really, only apologize if I feel like I need, if I've done something, that deserves an apology.
That deserves an actual apology.
Actual apology. And I also just try to like, I guess with the mentoring thing, I'm not like, I wouldn't call myself a mentor, like a designated mentor, but I do mentor in general, and I do give a lot of advice, like either on Instagram or wherever, or if a photographer whose work I admire, that I know that they're just languishing in obscurity because they just don't have the connections or the tools to or the understanding to like make things happen for them, I'll reach out and give them advice or connect them to people that can help them, or connect them to a magazine or something, because I think that that's really important. And not to have this like fear of scarcity that if I help other people, that's going to take a job away from me. Whatever is meant for you is meant for you. So that's that's one of the big things that I learned, because a friend actually did that for me, and that's what changed my whole career. Because like I said, I didn't have any, I was just making work on my own for 6.5 years, and I would ask other photographers, like, how do you get clients? How do you, make money? And I would get these like very vague, random, answers. And like, that's just not helpful. If you don't want to tell me, just don't tell me. Just don't want to tell me. Like, don't give me some random like answer. And a friend of mine basically was like, you like, here's an email list. He started me out with a small email list of clients it was all editorial, so like different magazines. And he's like, you should, email these people your work, and not like in an apologetic way, just like, you're not bothering them. Just email them, say, you're a photographer based in New York. Here's some samples of my work. If I would appreciate, not I would appreciate, but just like, I'm interested in a portfolio review, if you have any time coming up, and then just follow up with them every 4 to 6 weeks. And that's what I did. And I built that email list out, and I, figured out ways to find, once I figured out like, oh, like I can just go on LinkedIn and find the names of these people.
Right.
Then I can also figure out the email handle for that company. Then I was just like literally from like 6 a.m. to like 10 p.m. every day, just on LinkedIn, like putting emails together, emailing, people, had a whole spreadsheet situation, and whatever didn't bounce back, that was the email, like, that got through. So I would like, I had this whole like system and process, but within that time, I ended up getting a bunch of portfolio reviews. I didn't get any jobs because I didn't have any editorial. I just had all my time work. And, I think that that's also important for, editors and creative directors to take chances on people that don't necessarily have, like a portfolio that has like well-known brands or like well-known magazines or whatever. If they have all self-assigned, if they can take a picture, if they have like interesting work, then that should be enough. And so like I ended up not getting any jobs during that time, but I ended up getting ESPN's The Body Issue during that time, and ended up, that being my first real like big editorial without having anything prior to that, and which is wild. And, all the people that I'd, been emailing or like had portfolio reviews with that wouldn't hire me were in my inbox the same week. Like, hey, can you come in and shoot for us next week? Can you come in, all this stuff. So like, that's why it's really important to like lay the foundation for your success before you actually succeed. So, if I had not like made all that work for 6.5 years, if I had not like reached out to all those people, during that like 4 to 4 month time period, I wouldn't have had those opportunities once people like saw what I was capable of and decided to take a chance on me. So yeah. That was a lot.
No, I mean, it's this journey. And I think that's what our audience is, it's helpful to know. I mean, I learned so much from this time together, that taking the long view and doing what you think is the best work for you and means the most to you and not other people. Having a support system in good days and bad. And it's hard work. It's hard work, and it takes a long time, but that's the journey. And you'll probably never be satisfied with the work. And that's also part of the fun. So Asia, Dana, and Natalie, thank you. And thank you for your different partnerships with Adobe over the years. We love all that you do. You're an inspiration to all of us in the creative community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the WrapWomen's B Conference Conversation. Today, we're going to be speaking about breaking barriers and how to find your voice in your own narrative. I am Sharifa Murdoch, co-owner of Liberty Fairs and Chief of People and Culture for KITH, and also CEO of Envision Fest. Today, I'm going to be speaking with a group of women from various backgrounds and industries, some dynamic women, and I'm excited for this conversation. So I want everyone to introduce themselves, and I'm going to start with Maya. Hi, Maya.
Hi, thank you so much, Sharifa. I am so excited to be a part of this panel with so many amazing trailblazing women. My name is Maya Penn. I'm a 21-year-old environmental activist. I am an artist and an animator, and I am the founder and CEO of my own sustainable fashion line, as well as my own animation production company called Upendo Productions. I've been doing this work in sustainability, social good, and creative industries since 2008 when I was 8 years old. So I have a pretty unique path and journey that, I'm really excited to share my, perspective and experience on this topic.
Amazing. Thank you, Maya. Next up, Tess.
Hi, Sharifa. Hi, everybody. I am Tess Holliday. I am a plus size model, mom, author, and founder of the self-love movement, F Your Beauty Standards. I also use my platform for social justice advocacy as well. I feel like it's very important right now, especially as a Caucasian person that has a following, to use it to help uplift other voices and people that have been ignored for too long. So, I've been focusing more attention there as well. And I feel incredibly grateful to be sharing a space with so many phenomenal women. And I'm just forever immensely grateful to be here. Yeah.
All right, ladies. And we're super excited to hear from Montana.
Hi, everyone. I am Montana Tucker. I am a singer, songwriter, actress, dancer, creator. I have built an awesome platform on all social media, creating these mini dance videos where I talk about body positivity, anti-bullying, staying positive and staying true to yourself. I have a song called Be Myself coming out soon with Todrick Hall, which I'm really, really excited about, that we're releasing during Pride Month. And I hope to continue to use my platform to spread positivity and to keep impacting everyone's lives in a positive way. And I'm so excited to be here with all you amazing, powerful, incredibly beautiful women.
Thank you so much, Montana. And Dasha, let's hear from you.
Hi, my name is Dasha Polanco. I am an artist, actress. Most people know me from Orange is the New Black. I'm currently starring in the film In the Heights, releasing June 11th. Those know that I advocate for self-love, mental health, diversity, inclusion, and so on. The list continues. But most importantly, having the conversations, empowering women, and making sure that we, use our voice in a positive way and highlight important moving forward discussions. So I'm so honored to be with all of you amazing women and looking forward to talk a little something.
Thank you so much, Dasha. And last but not least, Sylvia.
Hello, everyone. I am so honored to be surrounded by such amazing and beautiful women. And well, I am a humanitarian. I'm a mountaineer. I'm an explorer, a social entrepreneur, living in San Francisco. I am passionate about giving women voice. As a survivor of sexual assault, it is my mission to allow people to overcome their shame and to live into their full potential. And in my own personal journey, nature has played an amazing part in my life. So I am here to actually just be able to allow people to see how powerful and amazing nature can be in our lives. So I have a book coming out next year, which I'm incredibly excited. And we just sold the film rights, and Selena Gomez announced that she will be playing me. So I'm really, really excited for what is going to come.
All right. Thank you so much, Sylvia. Great news. We're super excited for you. As mentioned today, listen, I'm so excited to be speaking to all you dynamic women. We're going to be talking about breaking barriers. And I think that we all had experiences in different barriers that we had to break. So let's start with the first question. What's the most significant barrier you had to overcome? Let's start with you, Sylvia.
My most significant barrier was self-doubt. I have been so, grateful to be on this journey of climbing the tallest mountains around the world. And that is not easy. I mean, it tests you the whole time. And I think for me is to really constantly doubt myself, but also to truly embrace my vulnerability. you know, especially when you're doing something that requires so much strength and a little bit of badassery, and you have to feel that you need to have this persona. I've, you know, been able to understand that becoming vulnerable doesn't make you weak, but if anything, it can open you up to more magic. That was one of the biggest challenges that I needed to come to terms with. And it's been beautiful to discover it.
That's amazing. That's beautiful. Maya, what about you? What barrier did you feel like you had to, you know, get over?
That's honestly a difficult question because there are so many different layers of barriers that have really been combating since I started. Being a young woman, like starting at such a young age, being a woman and also being a Black woman, all of those layers, you know, really made me completely stand out in every space that I was in. And on top of that, you know, being an activist and bringing that layer to all of the work that I do, whether it is through animation, whether it is through, you know, the work I do in the business world, that is something that also was like a barrier within itself, as well as just being a multi-hyphenate and, you know, not wanting to dilute any of the work that I was doing and, you know, really just pursuing everything and being my most really unapologetic self through my work. So it's so hard to answer that question because all of the layers kind of played off of each other, but at the same time, those barriers also made my voice stand out more on the upside of that.
I love that. And we're happy that you kind of got through that, because we're happy to have your presence here, just so you know. Tess, what about you? What do you think?
I mean, I deeply resonate with a lot of what's already been said, especially when it's in terms with, you know, being vulnerable and understanding that's not a weakness. You know, I am a self-proclaimed crybaby and I'm a very emotional person, and I have learned that my hypersensitivity and my emotions are my superpower. It's my way to connect with people, and that has really been useful with pioneering the work that I've done collectively. When I started modeling, there was no one else that looked like me, and that was incredibly hard because I knew that for me, I wanted to be a model, but it wasn't because of the vanity purposes. It was because of the representation and diversity. I didn't see larger bodies. I didn't see, you know, myself. And imagine what that's like, being like a short, fat, queer, Caucasian person. Like, that's not even like, that's diverse, but that's like not even, that's like the tip of the iceberg. So like, what about everybody else? At the time when I started, we hardly had any people of color that were modeling. The industry was not diverse at all. And now it's it's much more diverse than it is. And I'm grateful to have been a part of that collective. But, you know, when you are pushing, you know, societal standards and challenging things like that, it's not going to be easy. And there's been a lot of tears, but, you know, I'm stronger for it. And I've just had to learn to trust myself and my purpose and to block out all the noise.
No, I love that. And I'm so happy that you've done that. I want to dig a little bit deeper, Tess, with you, basically being one of the leaders. How do you feel to be one of the first, right? Like like you said, there isn't there. And I mean, I honestly still believe that we have a longer way to go. I think we're now just like touching the nail on it. But how do you feel like that you've been able to contribute by being one of the first?
You know, when you are the first at something, which I'm sure many of you can attest to in your own right, it is really lonely and it's hard, and at times you doubt yourself and you doubt your mission, and you wonder, like, what the hell am I doing? Why, you know, sometimes why am I doing this? You know, and you have to kind of look around you, and I am very fortunate that I have done this for a decade and I'm still able to sit with all of you lovely ladies and not crumble, which is what we want to do sometimes. But it's also been incredibly rewarding because I get to sit on this panel with a diverse group of women that are in their power. And I think any small drop in the bucket, whether it's in my industry or your guys's, collectively helps move things forward for everybody. So as lonely as it is, I also know that I am not alone. And that is what really helps me go. And it helps knowing that other folks are going to see, folks like us up here, and they're going to feel less alone just by the fact that we're here existing. And I think that's really powerful. And that's why I continue to do it.
Definitely.
And you're right. There's a lot of work to be done. Yeah.
But listen, at least you're starting it. And I'm happy to see that. I'm happy to see, I feel like you ladies on this panel have all kind of started something in your own right? And you're leading the charge on that. Dasha, I'm a big advocate for mentorship. And I am always trying to pay it forward to the generation coming up under us. Do any of you have mentors that you followed?
I was just like in awe listening to all these amazing people speak and realize how a lot of the things that I've been going through the last couple of years of my life, coming into this industry, being the first in my family, it's pretty much me taking a risk and being fearless and saying I have to do this because this is my purpose, and having a huge responsibility, because I think people have an idea that once you're an artist, once you're like an actor, once you do what you do, your social media, it's just a window, right? It's window shopping. And I have to say that for me, mentorship hasn't really been there. And I see that there's a lot. I've had this conversation. It's funny. I'm hearing Tess, I'm hearing Sylvia, I'm hearing Maya. I can't wait to hear Montana. I'm sorry, I have an accent. It's gonna come in and out. I'm gonna be speaking Spanish.
I love it. I was like, wow, your voice is amazing.
I'm gonna be telling people like, oh my God, I'm gonna throw the little Spanish words, you know what it is. Okay. Anyway,
go ahead.
Well, you already know. So the thing is that it's so funny that the loneliness that I felt, being depressed, being away, withdrawn, having the courage to say things like what I identify with, race, attacked, right? We've all have a moment where you're attacked on social media. You have a moment where people are not ready to have this conversation, and you question what you're doing, and you feel like, I'm not used to being vulnerable. I'm not used to being weak. I'm not used to somebody bullying me. Like I could take a bully, but we're living in a different time right now where we're like, it's so necessary to have somebody, a mentorship. And for me not to have one and to actually look or seek, or not having it allows me to realize that this is not really accessible to everyone. The only person I could look on to is what my mom taught me and what she did in her best life and what she could possibly had available to provide for me. So that's the only thing I have to hold on to. Everything else has been based on me like taking a risk and me saying, you know what, fuck everything. Oh, could we curse here? Can we curse?
Go ahead.
Sorry. Saying, you know what? I'm sorry. We have to move forward. If I don't do this now, then when am I going to do it? There's been times when I question myself, like, I'm in my 30s. What am I doing trying to songwrite? What am I doing trying to sing? Like, what am I doing? And then it comes to a point where I'm like, if I don't do it now, what am I going to do? When am I going to do this? Exactly. And then I look at, I realized, and I'm sorry, but I'm getting even goosebumps. I realized we know that there's toxicity. We know that there's people on social media. We know that there's people that have allowed things to transpire throughout years and years and years. And I'm like, I get angry at the negativity, but then I realize this is so necessary. You need the yin and the yang. This is their purpose. Their purpose is to be toxic in this life. And our purpose is to be optimistic, to uplift. Because if you don't have that, then it wouldn't be what it is, right? It's not, it wouldn't be what it is. So that being said, I have not had a mentorship mentor. I've only had my mom and
love it.
My self-resilience to look forward and to keep going.
Well, listen, your mom has taken you far, and just so be proud of that. Don't ever say you haven't, because your mother has taken you definitely. Sky's the limits for you. What about you, Montana? Let me hear.
Wow. I mean, I don't know how I go after that. That
Listen.
was so beautifully said. My goodness. Oh my gosh. Yes. But I think something that I always say, and I know it sounds so cliche, but I believe everything happens for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I think everyone has to go through these things in life, kind of what you were saying as well, that we all have to experience all these hardships, all these heartbreaks, everything, because it builds our character and it brings us to where we're supposed to go in life. And I feel like my career path has taken all these turns, and, you know, I've had crazy family, you know, issues. My parents went through a terrible divorce when I was 17, when I was like at the height of my career in that time. And I ended up taking 5 years off from everything because it was a terrible divorce and I just like mentally couldn't handle it. And so at the time, I didn't understand why this was happening to me, obviously. And, you know, I've been in this industry since I was 8 years old, singing, dancing, acting, and this is what I was born to do. So to take 5 years off of something that you feel that is your purpose in life, you know, it makes you wonder where you're supposed to go or wonder what you're supposed to do. And then I realized only, honestly, probably last year, it really hit me as to why that had to happen. Because I think that's why I do all the things that I do now, because I went through that hard time. I also was really bullied in school before that and all these different things. And as I got older and as I got to this point in my life, I realized why all those things happened to me. And now that's why I'm all inclusive with all my videos. I'm always doing videos with all different types of people from all different walks of life. And I'm always including everyone and anything in my videos. And it makes me so happy that I'm able to do that. And I have the platform to be able to do that. And regarding, you know, mentors, I think my mom and my grandparents were Holocaust survivors. And they came to the US with absolutely nothing. And they built the most incredible life and were the strongest people. My grandpa, my Zadie, actually passed away 2 years ago at 97. And my grandma's still alive, and she's had Alzheimer's for over 12 years and still is the strongest lady I know. And just from them, I learned to really never give up. You know, no matter what you go through in your life, you have to never give up, and that it will get better. No matter how hard it is, it will get better. And so I'm thankful, you know, for my grandparents. And then I think it passed on to my mom, who's my best friend and manager and all the things. And so I think that's really been passed on to me, to just continue to never give up and work hard, because you can do anything you want to do.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's so good. Montana, it's so interesting that you and Dasha have the same kind of like backstory where it's your family, right? I started Envision Festival just because I grew up in Brooklyn. I saw, you know, what the culture was, and I knew someone gave me an opportunity years ago, and I wanted to give that back to Brooklyn. So I started a festival to empower young women to kind of get mentorship and get guidance so that they can see different from what they grew up seeing. So it's so amazing that you guys have had that background where you can look at your parents or your grandparents and get that mentorship, but some people don't, you know? And I want to know, like, has there, Maya or Tess or Sylvia, for any of you, have there been someone outside of your family have been your guidance and your leader, or no?
I was going to say, you know, for me, I mean, I'm doing in mountaineering, you know, it's a very male-centric sport. So I haven't had a lot of mentors per se. But I have to tell you, I mean, to me, thinking of some of the women who were pioneers, so who are no longer alive, actually, if anything, not to sound a little bit too cheesy, but, you know, they kind of have been mentors in a way. And I think that opens up the possibility for people that have been close to us that are no longer with us. You know, I don't think a mentorship has to stay just on the person being alive. It could be somebody who's no longer here, who, you know, you can connect. And especially, you know, at least on some of the things that I do, I'm so exposed and it's so dangerous, and you are in such raw nature that there's a way of spirituality, and you just have to trust your heart. I lost a partner many, many years ago, and, you know, I couldn't tell her I love her. And a friend of mine told me, Sylvia, the answers are always in your heart. And it was the best advice I ever got in terms of continuing that connection. And I think we tend to undermine it. Sometimes we protect it, or we don't trust our hearts. But if we can communicate, you know, like, we can reach out to anyone. And I've been so grateful that at moments of a lot of distress, I just sometimes surrender and I just ask, you know, for the mentorship of these amazing heroes. And it's somehow like, you know, you get tranquility, you get something. It's just really powerful. I think it actually only kind of exemplifies just that, we are not alone, regardless of where we are. And we might not have a direct connection, but, it's, our possibilities are limitless.
Amazing. Maya and Tess?
Yeah, I just wanted to, add on to, for me, like, of course, my mom, and my dad have been mentors to me. I'm really blessed that I have parents who have been really supportive of my work. And, even when I came to them at 8 years old and was like, I want to start a STEM fashion company. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to start making anime short film. It wasn't like, oh, you're too young, like, let's figure that out another time. They were like, okay, well, figure out what you need to do to accomplish that. But in terms of people outside of my family, for me living in Atlanta, Georgia is and has been, it still is, like basically a big core of the civil rights movement. And I have had the opportunities to meet and to learn from activists in civil rights, just titans within activism, such as Representative John Lewis, Bernice A. King, who is the daughter of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and and Evelyn Lowry, Joseph Lowry, so many people who have been activists both within civil rights, racial equality, environmental racism, and a lot of the topics that I speak to. Those are people that have paved the way for me to use my voice at this scale and to build the platform that I have now to be able to empower and educate and really spur people into action. So, having those opportunities has definitely been, really, really a blessing for me. And those are some of, like, when people think about, when people ask, who are some of the most amazing people that you've met in your life? And of course, there are so many people, who are like big, like household names that, most people would think of that I've met. But for me personally, those are my biggest, like, life-changing, like, people that have come into my life because they have actively, speaking to like what Sylvia just spoke to, like they have actively paved the way for me. And to have an opportunity to meet and learn from them has just been really, really incredible. And also too, I kind of want to touch on something that Tess kind of spoke to around being the first. Of course, so many people have paved the way for my platform, but I'm someone who started my work when words like kidpreneur, teenpreneur, were not a thing. Sustainable fashion was not a mainstream topic. And, like, really, like, diversity within industries like, like certain creative spaces like animation were, like, nowhere near focused on at all on the scale that they are now. And so I had to really, kind of shape what my path and my journey was going to look like as an activist and an artist and an entrepreneur, because even though I did have those people who have helped pave the way for my voice to be heard on this scale, I still didn't have a lot of points of reference, and I had to kind of craft my own blueprint. And so also coming off of that too, just having the support to build something new or build something different that people might not have seen. I think it's important for people to remember to not be afraid to stand out. If they're doing something that hasn't been seen, at least on a major scale, then okay. if people are building a new platform or a journey on a way or a path that has never been seen on a major scale before, then that is actually really awesome. And you have to remember, it's not just you that is alone. You're bringing up so many other people who need your voice, who need to see you and need to be represented by you. You're not alone in that journey. And I think that's what's so beautiful. And my thing is always too, just on the flip side of that, I always encourage other people to, remember that the true meaning of success is not just meeting your goals, but also reaching back and helping others meet their goals. I especially
1000%.
with other women, like I'm now, someone who's able to mentor other young girls that I see myself in, because I understand the importance of having that guide and that resource. So
I love that. Thank you. Thank you. I have another question for you. All of you guys have taken risks. I mean, Dasha, you're talking about your family and your background. And I know when I was entering into fashion, all my family is West Indian. So they thought we were going to go play with clothes all day. And that's what it was, right? So I want to know, like, what has been the biggest risk that you've taken at this point in time? Like when you told them your first conversation, well, I want to be an actor or an artist. What was the first conversation like?
As an immigrant, I came here. My parents brought me here, and I think that that's something that's admirable. For you to go to a new country, you don't speak, don't know anything. You're gonna go work at a factory, earn minimum wage, and you have a dream, right? And that's pretty much what my parents did, and that right there instilled in me courage. And coming here at a young age, really young age, to something totally different. It's a culture shock, one, but also you're limitless. The possibilities are endless. And me expressing, like, I knew at a very young age that I was like expressive. My imagination was really big. What I wanted to do was to touch people in a way through my art, whether it was dancing, singing, whatever it was, whether it was creating murals, whether it was helping young kids, whatever means necessary by my art. And can I tell you that I was so blessed that my parents never discouraged me or deviating me from doing that. It was always like, do what you're going to do. If it's picking up the garbage, you're going to pick up the garbage, but you're going to be the best garbage picture. You understand? That's the mentality.
Yes.
Whatever you set your mind to, you do, and you be the best at. But always treat everybody with respect.
Yes.
Right? It doesn't matter who it is. It can be the janitor. You say good morning. You don't forget your manners. You respect everyone the same way. And I think that's why I have that sense of, like, one thing I'm proud of is who I am as a person, not what I've done. It's who I am and how I treat my fellow human beings, and see beyond that it's how we carry and what we do, and what we ultimately do for one another. And so I can't say that I didn't get the pressure that I have to get an education, because I had to go to school. That was the deal.
Yes.
You got to go to school. You're going to bring that diploma. There was no option. You have to get an education with one. But two, it was do whatever you want to do, whatever your heart fulfills. Do it, and do it the best you can. And one advice I got from a Caribbean father, where that the men in the Caribbean, that's a totally other conversation, was, my daughter, I want you to do your own thing. I want you to get your own place so that you never depend on a man. And that stay the independency that we all as women are able to have and are able to create. So I mean, I can say that sharing with the women along this platform, there's one thing that I notice is how independent and how we all, listening to one in each event, we all come from different backgrounds, but we all have this kind of same journey. And the journey is of being independent and being strong and standing in our power and moving forward all together.
Agreed. Nicely said, Dasha. Montana, do you feel like you had to take any risks, going through your career?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, going back to that time that I took 5 years off from everything, you go through this, I never stopped loving what I do. I just had to go through this time, and getting back into it. I was like, am I ready to get back into this? Am I supposed to do this? Is this still what I'm supposed to do? Is this my purpose still in life? You start thinking of all these things, and, I feel like I took the risk and I did it. And I, again, kind of what you said originally was my parents always instilled on me, you have to go to college. I think my dad thought I was going to be a lawyer or something. took a real turn there, but, and it was always so important to my family. And so the fact that, my mom really fought for, she really wanted me to follow my dreams and, do whatever I was passionate about. And so I think it was a a risk at my young age, but then again later on in life when I got back into it, to just say, hey, this is what I want to do. This is what I love to do. Just do it. Whatever happens, just do it. Just go for it. And, that's when I was living in Florida at the time. I moved out to LA and I was just like, all right, we're doing this. We're all in, whatever happens. And, also when I started social media, I think social media has this, it's like either the best thing in the world or the worst thing in the world, unfortunately.
Yes.
It's like, I don't know why there's no middle ground. And so I think, as a creator on the platform, as a female, I don't know if any of you guys can, and I'm sure you can relate to this. It's hard because it's like, you see certain women on there that are posting certain things and you're like, do I need to be posting like that? Should I be looking like that? And then you're like, you have this other side to you that, at least for me, I want to stay true to myself and I don't want to start looking like someone else, or I don't want to start posting like someone else. And you get in your head about what do I do? I see this is working for that person. I see, they're doing great by doing that. Do I need to do that? And so I think for me, I always had this back and forth of feeling like I need to show off everything on social media to get ahead or whatever it was. And do you stay true to yourself, or do you do what you think will work for the public? And I think by staying true to myself and posting exactly what I want to post and being a positive role model, I think has taken me to where I'm at. And I'm so grateful for that. But I think you always go through these moments in your head of like, should I be doing this? Am I doing this wrong? Are people going to like this? And so I think that has been like the biggest struggle for me. And I'm grateful that I have remained true to myself. And it seems that all of you ladies have done that as well. And that's why you're all in the positions that you're in right now and where you're at in life. So I think that's amazing.
Social media will take you out. I always say it's a lot. It is a lot, and it's draining. It's draining to me.
Yeah.
But we all have to do it. It's really interesting. I always struggle with it. It's like, I don't want to do it, but do I have to do it? You're like fighting with it. So I totally understand it. I hear you. I want to ask you ladies something. I always think about kind of like not what coulda, shoulda, woulda, but more like if I knew before, what would I have done? What do you wish you would have known? I'm going to start with you, Tess. What do you wish you would have known before that you would put into place today?
I wish I would have known that the only person's opinion that mattered was my own, and to listen to myself and trust myself, because I I really, really, really knew that I was doing the right thing and I was on the right path. And there's been so many people along the way, including, my ex-husband, because I've shared, the past 6 months that I was in an abusive relationship and how damaging that was to my self-esteem, my career, my everything, every aspect it touched. And it was incredibly isolating, and it wasn't just his opinion, but it was everyone's that came with it. And when you're in a position where someone is taking your power and not allowing you to be the person that you know that you are, it's really easy to let other people kind of get in your head and doubt, put seeds of like self-doubt. It's easy to get distracted and to not trust yourself. And it's really been the past year and truly 6 months where I finally feel for the first time in my life that I am truly in my power. And I don't ever see me going back to the place that I was, because I know that I'm on the right path, that I'm doing the right thing, and that I have to trust myself, and anything else is just noise. And like Dasha was saying, and everyone else, I mean, I was almost crying when Sylvia was speaking earlier as well, which, it's just a normal Monday for me to cry, but it's just it's so powerful hearing so many women in so many different fields understand what it's like to have those feelings of like self-doubt, and realize that we have to push through, because at the end of the day, I'm doing this for myself, but I'm doing it collectively to help make the world a safer place for others that have, not really felt seen and heard and loved and supported. So yeah, I'm really glad that I trust myself, and I am, each day is each day is tough sometimes, but I'm tougher. So yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Sylvia, what about you?
It's funny. I mean, it's one of those things. I was reflecting about it because on one side, I believe everything has led me to where I am right now. So it's almost like, you kind of embrace, almost sometimes the regrets. But if I was to look back, I think possibly, what if I was to tell myself, very younger version of me 10 years ago, it'd be like, just don't be afraid of being more vocal, own your narrative. And I mean, it's funny because I remember, mine was like, one day I want to climb the tallest mountain in the world. So it's not like, a very small narrative. It was very scary. And I think it was part of my own self-doubt about, okay, I'm not going to tell other people because of the fear of failure. And what I have learned along the way is that, you know what? And so if you fail, be it,
Yeah.
Sun is going to come out the next day, moon is going to come out, stars are going to come out. And I think I was just putting so much pressure about, like, let me keep it quiet. Let me keep it small. So if I fail, like, it wouldn't have that much of an impact. And I think that's a one piece that I could say back. I wish I would knew that, just take more chances in terms of like voicing out. It's your voice, it's your own unique personal voice. Just say it out loud and don't be afraid of what others are going to think, what, repercussions. Just trust your purpose, trust the purpose, trust that voice. And just magic will happen along the way. Because I think the minute that we do things with purpose, we get so much help from the universe, just, kind of things that we might think like, oh my God, this happened by luck. No, is that, our ancestors, our spiritual guides, and people are going to come and they're going to hold us as long as we can just simply trust purpose. And I think, that's something that, trust the purpose and don't be afraid of raising that voice. So
yeah, love it. Love it. Dasha, you had something to add? Or
if I was my young self, and I have to tell myself every day is not to be embarrassed of what I've been through, whether it's, teen mom, whether it's, your mom passed, domestic violence. Yes, like, I used to be so embarrassed about everything that I've been through. I used to be like, I can't tell people this. Like, I'm a teen mom. People used to be like, you're a mother? I'm like, yeah, I'm a mother. And I used to be so embarrassed. And I realized, you're not the only one in the world. You're not the first. You're not the last. And it's okay. That's what makes you. That's what's been constructed for you to climb, to be able to climb your tallest mountain, to be able to like create your animation, to be able to say, you know what, this is how I dance on my social media. This is how I stand strong in my body. And this is how I struggle. This is how I'm an empath. I may cry on a Monday, but this is how I have to do it because this is what makes me. And so I would tell myself, my younger self, it's okay that you've gone through this. There's no reason to be embarrassed. When you're ready to voice it, you voice it, and you do it with your high held high. You dust the dust off you dust your shoulder, and you say, you know what, this is me, and I'm going to stand strong in what is me. This is not embarrassment. This is my experience, and that's what I have to remind myself every day. This is my experience.
Yeah. No, I love that. Like, I honestly channel that because I am embarrassed over everything. Like, if you're talking too loud, I'm like, wait, no, use your indoor voice. Like, I get so embarrassed. So I could totally understand where you're coming from. It could be the smallest or the biggest thing. I get embarrassed as well. So I hear you. Listen, we all we handle a lot of different things, right? Like, we all have different companies. We're doing so many different things. I want to know, what is your guilty pleasure? I'm going to tell you mine. All I do is go on an app, Net-a-Porter, and I put things in a bag. And I think I'm going to buy it. And I might buy it. And then sometimes I don't buy it. But that is my guilty pleasure, that and a spa. What is your guilty pleasure? What do you do to release all the work you guys are doing? You're out there working so hard. you're being a mother, you're just being. What do you guys do to release? I'm gonna start with you, Maya.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and this almost kind of plays off of the last question a little bit. I've just really, I think continued to lean into just like being myself in front of people just beyond my family and friends, in a sense of the work that I'm doing, is really serious. Like when you're talking about climate change, you're talking about environmental racism, and you're using your platform to talk about all these serious issues. Sometimes activists are dehumanized a lot too. We're still people, and so I agree with Sylvia about kind of owning your narrative, and telling people, hey, this is the full scope. I'm a multifaceted person, so one day I might be writing an article about the future of green jobs, and then later that day I might be on my Nintendo Switch playing Animal Crossing, because I'm still a 21-year-old girl. I'm still like watching cartoons. I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons with my friends like on a regular basis. We're creating a new campaign right now. I really I'm very passionate about humanizing people who do really tough work, because we still need to have our own escape. We still need to have our own self-care, that we put back into ourselves. And so I'd like to, be vocal about that. So, people understand the fact that, people are people are multifaceted, and people are growing and evolving. And so, yeah, for me, it is, just talking, with friends virtually. We're watching movies via Zoom, or like I said, watching cartoons, baking. I'm vegan, so I have to experiment a lot. And, that's
Amazing.
something really fun for me.
Okay.
And, just basically just being a nerd is
Listen, it's life. It's life. Be who you are.
We're all nerds.
Exactly, in our own right. Listen, Montana, what about you? What's your guilty pleasure?
My guilty pleasure. Ooh, I feel like because all day what I do is so high energy that I have to always be I'm filming 10 videos a day, and I'm always on and dancing in random places everywhere, and just so much energy that I feel like my guilty pleasure literally is sitting on my couch ordering Postmates, watching Netflix. I know it's probably not the craziest guilty pleasure, but it's just going from that extreme energy to just then completely stripped down is my favorite thing in the world. I know it sounds weird, but I think what all of us do, honestly, is it gets a lot. It's not draining, because it's draining, I feel like, is a negative term, but it takes a lot of for everything we all do. It's just a lot of energy, and sometimes you need to have those moments where you can just be with yourself and just chill and just relax. And I think it's probably hard for all of us, because I feel like we're all such hard workers, and we're also passionate about what we do. And so it's hard to have those moments where you just sit with yourself and relax, because we all want to change the world in all our different ways. So I think for me, I don't know if we would even, I guess, I don't know, is it considered a guilty pleasure? I don't know.
It is. It definitely is.
Yeah, for me, I'm just I want to eat junk
Netflix and chill.
Yeah.
Listen, I get it.
Do all the things.
I get it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Sylvia, I'm going to ask you next, and then I have one question for all of you ladies to close this out.
My guilty pleasure? It's sushi and keep upgrading my vision board. It's keep thinking, keep imagining, keep adding more color to the things. That's my guilty pleasure.
I love it. I love it. So I always think about legacy. And, there's always that question of what do you want to leave? What would you like to leave as your legacy? Beyonce has a song out that is probably old. It is definitely old. It's called I Was Here. So that's 3 words. That's my favorite song. That's what my legacy would be. I need you guys in 3 words to tell me what your legacy is going to be.
I must say, look, you gave me 3 words. We don't do things in 3 words.
I know. I'm trying.
Can you tell me want to keep going in the conversation?
Okay.
Can it be your words?
It could be more than 3 words, but quick. What's your legacy? Go. Dasha, you start.
I'm going to make sure that my kids and my future kids will always be able to look back and say, damn, my grandma, my mom, she smelled good.
Okay.
Smell good, boo. I smell good. And in the heights. And in the
I
heights.
love it.
But I think it's my love and my voice and what I'm leaving behind, you know?
I love that. Okay. Go ahead, Sylvia.
Your voice is your biggest weapon. Go find it.
All right, Tess. Come on, Sylvia, with the words. Tess?
I'm never shrinking myself to fit into places that I don't belong.
Tess, you're my spirit animal. You're my spirit animal. All
I
right, now,
love you.
Maya.
I think my 3 words would be collectivism, creativity, and action. That summarizes all the work that I do and what I want to encourage everyone to do. And know the power that they have within. People need to remember the power that is already inherently within them. Nobody can give that to you. That's something that you got to take for yourself.
Amazing. And last but not least, Montana.
Well, first of all, Dasha, I need to know what perfume you wear because
For real.
Come on. No, but I feel like it is so hard to put it into 3 words or to make to shrink it.
Say
But
whatever you got to say. Go.
okay, I think hopefully what I would leave behind is to always stay true to yourself, no matter what you go through, no matter where you come from, no matter how rich, how poor, the color of your skin, what you identify as, to always stay true to yourself and never let anyone change who you are.
Amazing. Thank you, ladies. Thank you. Listen, this conversation has given me life. I want to thank you guys seriously for even participating in this. I want to thank B Conference. I had such a good conversation and learned so much about you. I want you guys to all follow each other, keep up with each other. For everyone, whoever wants to come to New York, let's all get together and let's honestly stay connected. Like, this was such a great conversation and it was very inspiring.
I'm sending my
All right.
now.
Yes, send your number, Dasha. We definitely should all stay connected because this is a beautiful group. And I would love to we have to get together because this was beautiful.
Yes.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. So nice to meet you all.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to day 1 of B Conference 2021. I'm Sharon Waxman, the editor-in-chief of the Wrap and WrapWomen. Today, I'm here with ICM's Lori Bartlett, head of talent at the agency and a member of its board of directors. Lori is a trailblazer in the entertainment business. She was the first African-American to be named to the board of a major talent agency. She was also the first African-American to become a department head at a major talent agency. Her client list today includes such luminaries as director and actress Regina King, who we love, Michael Keaton, we love him too, Ruth Negga, Laverne Cox, Lucy Liu, among many others. She currently leads the ICM Partners initiative called Diversify ICM, which leads the efforts to fill 50% of all positions at the agency with diverse candidates going forward. So we're delighted to welcome her. Welcome, Lori.
Thanks, Sharon. Thanks for having me. Hi, everybody.
Yes, thank you so much for being here. Well, the first question I want to ask you is not so obvious to many people, which is, what do you like about being an agent?
Oh, that's a great question. Here's my answer. It's the same thing. It's the same thing that makes me crazy about being an agent. It's the same. I love and hate it. So I'm maybe schizophrenic. I don't know. I find that I just never know what the day's going to bring. Right. And there is something unbelievably exciting about that. But it's also a little nerve-wracking. So I love that not every day's the same. And yeah, there are certain things that you do that are, you're on the phone for a bazillion hours straight or whatever, but there are just so many different things, ways your day can go sideways. And, so it's a roller coaster and I like it.
Yeah, but very few people sort of, are little girls and think, when I grow up, right, I want to be an agent.
Right. I think it certainly wasn't the case for me. I knew that film and television was just like, for me, it was transformative, and I loved just losing myself in movies and TV shows. And it was that I loved. I had no idea sort of the things that went behind the camera, and all the jobs that comprise getting a movie or TV show made. That to me was illuminating. And someone said to me, go work at a talent agency, go work at an agency. It's the largest playing field, and you can figure out what you want to do. And luckily for me, it was really clear that I got to participate in helping creative people curate a career. But I certainly I didn't think I could ever be an actor, or certainly I'm not clever enough. I can't find my words on a daily basis, so I couldn't be a writer. But the idea that I could help others and put creative people together, that was exciting to me. And it remains that way, I have to say.
Yeah. I mean, you have some unbelievable clients. We know Regina King quite well. She actually spoke at our last WrapWomen Summit. And we worked with her so many times. It's been incredible to watch her blossom over the past, even let's say, decade.
We've worked together 20 plus years. Yeah.
So, that really, that's the work of a lifetime, really sort of believing in someone's talent and supporting it.
And listen, there's a great core team of people that surround Regina. And I just feel lucky to be part of that, and to have been on the journey this long.
That's got to be a great gift.
Yeah.
To when that happens.
Well,
I'd like to talk. I'm sorry.
When someone's that talented and a good person, it's unbelievably gratifying.
Yeah. Hard to find something to criticize about Regina King. I really have to say, she's just, because not everybody who is so talented, you're right, are also such really nice people. She's even nice to journalists, if you can believe that.
I believe it.
You would believe that. So one of the reasons I really am so excited to welcome you here to B Conference is that ICM happens to be an agency that had announced and committed to true diversity and more gender equity in, I think it's 2 years ago. And we checked back with all of the major agencies for a piece that we wrote about a month ago. And we found that ICM was the only major agency that actually had achieved 50-50 throughout its ranks, apparently.
In the gender parity arena, we have 50% of all the employees at the company are female. 43% of our governing board is female. 65% of all of the departments are either run or co-run by women. So, we've done, I think, a really great job in looking at that, taking up the task and really and doing the work to get there. And now it's really about increasing our footprint in the area of really in the diversity of people of color, the LGBTQ plus community, et cetera. We really have some work to do there, but as does everyone.
Well, for sure. And when we did that survey, we actually couldn't even get other agencies to respond to us, which we found really disappointing, because obviously a lot of agencies have a lot of entertainment companies, and particularly agencies who make their livelihoods out of representation, really took a big hit last year when production was shut down for a lot of the year during COVID. But what I want to ask, first of all, is how did ICM go about achieving this? Which is cool to see that it can be done if the intention and the focus is there. So help us understand what changed?
It's a word I used in an interview a few weeks ago, and you just used, which is intentional. I do think that we can all talk about how we want things to change, and we all need to understand that things don't always change overnight. But if you can start to think about how you can affect the change and have it be long lasting, and then you start to put those pieces into place. And it's really taking the time to interview more candidates, not just the 3 men put in front of you, or 3 white men put in front of you, or the 3, you know what I mean? It's about really making sure that you give as many people as possible the opportunity to join your ranks, and then bringing them in, mentoring them, because you can create a pipeline, Sharon, but you also have to maintain the pipeline. And that's really and part of the matriculation of someone who comes in as an assistant and goes through the ranks. They really do need mentoring. They really do need to feel that they're heard, that they're given an opportunity to understand scenarios that take place with clients' work or in an agency. So it's again, it's creating the pipeline, but it's also the maintenance of the pipeline, which is really important, which we recognize and are really trying to do.
Well, did ICM go out and recruit female talent, if we're talking about the 50-50 gender equity achievement, which is really impressive, and I think ultimately really does trickle down in the kinds of projects and the kinds of talent that gets seen and understood, right? And ultimately bubbles up into the content that gets made. But and I'm sure a lot of people who are watching this are asking themselves, well, that sounds great, but like that looks like a big castle that doesn't have a door where I can knock on it. Like, how do you reach out to candidates who are not the usual 3 white guys who were otherwise going to be tapped?
Right. Well, just to give you an example, we've aligned ourselves. So we have an internship program at ICM, and this year we're doing it virtually. Still, just being safe.
Is that possible to intern virtually? Really?
Yeah. And I have to say, our HR staff and the coordinators within our company are doing a really great job constructing a program that we hope will be really beneficial and for the interns. But yes, they're going to have to do it virtually. We're going to have a number of the agents, both young, sort of midway through a career, maybe 5, 6, 7 years in, and senior management, be part of sessions like the ones that you're having for your conference, so they can hear stories and hear how people made their way through the agency world, and because so many of them are different, and that's what we're doing. But we aligned ourselves this year with a really fantastic organization called HBCUs in LA, run by an incredible woman named Stacy Milner, amazing woman. And what we're committing, we have 15 interns this summer, and we're committing to
50, 50 or 15?
No, 15.
15.
50 virtually would be a little tougher to manage, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, impossible, I would think.
But so 15, but of those 15, at least 5 of them will be candidates from an HBCU, maybe more, but we're committing to at least 5. So it's a drop in the bucket, but it's a start, and those are the kinds of things that we're trying to do in creating outreach at universities through some of the affinity groups, like, the Black Student Union or the Latinx Union or Asian American Union, you know what I mean? Going to organizations that maybe wouldn't be generally approached, and not just through the film school or not just through, because I think often people don't even understand what agents do. And so our job is to help make them aware of what agents do and what they can do and how influential we can be in really starting and creating and helping a career nurture.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you, with all of those efforts that are being made, at the same time, there was an expose about ICM in the LA Times recently that brought forth some allegations about behavior that I feel like I should at least ask you about. Of course, doesn't involve you personally, naturally, but just,
But
you know,
it's,
there was
but it's a company, and I'm part of this
yeah,
company,
yeah.
and I'm proud of this agency. You know,
Well, you were quoted in the story as saying that. Let me just, for those who haven't seen it, it alleged, you know, the abusive behavior, an instance, at least one of racism, a few instances of sexual misconduct. So I did want to give you a chance to address that.
No, I appreciate that. And, you know, I do think that there was a quote from the female board members about
yes.
How we exist and enjoy and are proud of the work that we have gotten to do at ICM and will continue to do. And one of the things that we talked about was the women who exist. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, guys. One of the things that we talk about and I think it's important for this audience to hear, that one of the things that drew us to ICM were the women who were successful and at ICM, like Tony Howard, like excuse me, like Binky Urban, like Esther Newberg, and who have been there for 30 plus years. And
actually, those are legendary women in the agency business.
For
all
good
of them,
reason,
yeah.
I might add, and who still have thriving careers at the agency, right? And we're probably in an environment that maybe wasn't as conducive to success as it is today, even though it's still hard. But I will just say that, listen, I think with any large corporation, not everybody behaves well. But I do think that we have an incredible group of professionals that work at ICM. And frankly, in that article, every incident that was mentioned had been investigated, had been dealt with, and I certainly can't provide details, only just because of privacy issues, et cetera, and all that stuff. But I can tell you with great conviction that we take all of that incredibly seriously, and we pride ourselves on the kind of environment and culture that we have created at ICM, and will continue to work hard to make sure that that environment exists. So yeah, that's there are again, there are things that get written about you that aren't pleasant and not true, and
you're saying that you think that there were things in this article that were not true, or you're just saying that the overall conclusion was not true?
I think both, frankly. But yeah, I do think that at the end of the day, what you'll see is that, you know, again, our work speaks for itself, and the support from the business and our clients has been overwhelming.
Since then, you feel solid. You feel there was nothing in there that made you say, this is things I didn't know about this company.
No, and again, a number of the things that were brought up were old, and they were investigated, and so it's just it's just troubling that that kind of stuff gets rehashed. But certainly, if we have to take something like this, look at it, and go, what can we do better, right? And how can we be a better version of ourselves? And that's exactly what we're going to do.
Well, I think that's really important. I think part of what's happening too is that, and some of the comments that I've heard has to do with overall what is the culture of Hollywood agencies, and is that changing, or does that need to change? In other words, the idea that became, and it's enshrined in popular culture in a show like Entourage, with a character like Ari Gold, it almost becomes kind of a badge of honor sometimes to yell at assistants. I'm not even referring to ICM. I'm just saying, like, generally speaking.
No, I definitely think that there was a different standard in terms of the way people conducted themselves, but I also believe that there's been a real attitude shift in that, and we certainly have employed that. And listen, there are going to be times where we work in a very competitive, fast-paced, pressure-filled environment. Sometimes I think things can escalate, but I also feel that you can, nothing has transpired that certainly I've seen that is not, that can't be handled, right? And
so let me turn this back to you a bit. So, here you are as I'm just thinking of you at the beginning of your career, a young Black woman who has aspirations in an industry that does not have a lot of role models for you, if any role models for you, in terms of having other people of color who are helping run an agency or whatever it may be. How did you?
That didn't exist. Yeah.
It didn't, like, zero. Okay. So first of all, how were you treated? How did you get over whatever sort of lack of encouragement that came your way, or was there encouragement?
Well, I would certainly say that there have been incredible mentors in my journey throughout the business, and both whom I worked directly with and those whose work I saw, right? There are plenty of women whose shoulders I stand on. And, I mentioned earlier Tony Howard, Joan Hyler, who no longer, she is retired. Dolores Robinson, who was an incredible icon for me. A woman named Sheila Robinson, who was an agent at ICM many years ago, who's no longer with us. A woman named Jenny Delaney. A woman named Beth Ann Hardison's work. I mean, really incredible women who's, forged their own path, and there weren't a lot of examples, and that's why I'm doing this today, Sharon, because I do feel that it's important. Representation does matter. I want some young Black or brown girl in Kansas to see this interview and go, she did it? Okay, I might be able to do this. All right, that's cool. So that's really what it's about, right? And like I said, there were so many shoulders that I got to stand on that I want to make sure that mine are here for others. And you know what? I also want to mention a woman named Leslie Siebert, who I worked with at the Gersh Agency, who's an incredible agent and was really a great ally and was really inspirational. She's an incredible agent.
So these are all these. You didn't work for all these women. You worked for some of them, and
others I got to alongside, or I just got to meet during my Nina Shaw, who's an incredible lawyer and great support.
We love Nina.
Yeah, I love Nina too. So there's, and by the way, I'm forgetting people. So those of you who know who you are and who have been a great ally to me know that you're here.
But it's so great that you bring this up, because I was moderating a conversation the other day, or maybe watching a conversation that we had about representation. And one of the actresses on that said she literally had no mentors. She's a Latina actress who's going to, and another great conversation. The moderator went around and said, "Who were your mentors?" And she said, I've had no mentors. No one has ever encouraged me. It was really sad. She talked about, yeah, exactly. She talked about her mom, who, said, if you can make it happen, sure. But there was no template. There was no model for her. And that, it really did, just like that face you made, it just kind of made me sad to think that we all need help, all of us. And we don't get here without the goodwill and the generosity of others, really, all along the way. And sometimes you pick a mentor, and sometimes a mentor picks you. But I love that you feel like these women helped you forge a new path, because you really have been forging a new path.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, I want to mention some of the other things that we're doing at ICM. We have an affinity group called Her ICM, which is a women's group. We have Diversify ICM, which is really a cross section of so many different people at the agency, but really was started by the Black leadership at ICM, and came out of the social outrage and after George Floyd's murder last year, that and that's been an incredible experience for us to figure out how we're as a unit going to impact social change. And one of our leaders, Travis Merriweather, was the impetus behind a joint agency protest last year, the one that Michael B. Jordan spoke at, was created by Travis, and we then enlisted other agencies to be part of that protest. And we do have an inclusion group for our LGBTQI employees, and so it's about trying to be thoughtful about who people are and make sure people are heard. And I think that's why this conference is so important. It allows young women to understand that there are shoulders that you can stand on. There are people that you can be part of. And I'm talking a lot, aren't I, Sharon? But
that was the idea.
But one of the things that my partner and Dar Rollins and I do, we co-run the talent department together. We created a meeting for our coordinators, who are the young people who are promoted from assistant it's the next step before becoming an agent, right? So
was it to what, assistant to coordinator?
Coordinator, and then coordinator. So what we've done is we do this coordinator meeting. When we were in the office, we would do it weekly, virtually, remotely. We've done it every other week, where we get all the coordinators from every single department in the company, and we create a space that's safe to have real important conversations about what's good, what's bad, what we need to do better at the agency. But we also then provide an atmosphere and for them to work on and create scenarios to help them become better agents, right? And help them understand that working together, working collaboratively and collectively is a positive, and can only help you, again, as you move through the agency. So that's been incredibly satisfying. We've had great ideas come out of that group. We've had agents come out of that group, and that's something that Dar and I spend a lot of time on, and make sure that there is a space for these young people to talk about what's on their mind, right? And there's also this idea that we assign a senior agent to a younger agent as their
Oh, wow.
as they're promoted, and it's someone from a different department. So then you get, again, a better idea of the agency as a whole, as opposed to just someone in your department. And the idea is maybe you can speak more freely with someone who isn't directly, supervising you.
If you could sort of cast your mind, 5 years out, or even 3 years out, I mean, is there a goal around diversification, sort of what representation you would like to see ICM look like, or even, indeed all the agencies, because this is not an ICM issue. This is industry-wide.
That's what I would say, Sharon. My ideal would be that every agency, every entertainment company, frankly, not just agencies, reflect the way our world looks, right? And that's really, at the end of the day, the goal. And so constructing the mechanisms to make sure that happens is what we have to do now. And that's really what, for us at this juncture, that's what our legacy is, that we got to implement and put into place real, tangible things that help create change, but not just change in the moment, but change that will be lasting. And that is, I think, a real important part of this puzzle, that none of us are reactive, but we're doing things to help create an atmosphere and an environment that allows the doors to seem open, or to be open, not seem, but to be open. And so that's, I think, that's a big goal.
I think you might be flooded with resumes after this talk, but that's going to be your problem. Before we have to wrap up, I want to ask you two quick things. Is there a particular sort of challenge or moment that you can recall from your career that seemed, devastating at the time, but that ended up being something that you learned from and grew from?
I was told by a senior executive that I would never succeed because I was too fat, and that I should lose weight if I ever wanted to move ahead. He didn't say I was too black. He just said I was too fat. But I
wow.
It was, for me, it was really devastating because I thought, wow, because I'm actually doing pretty great work. What does it matter what size I am, right? But I just remembered something that my dad would always say to me. And my dad was a real sports nut and was very successful in his own right.
What did he do for a living?
My dad was the mayor where I grew up. And
where? Mayor of where?
In Monrovia, California, for many years. He was the mayor for, I think, 14 years, and on the city council for 12.
Oh, wow.
My dad was like one of those, he had a bunch of different jobs. He was a coach at a junior college, offensive coordinator. He was a vice president at a trucking firm that doesn't exist anymore. But really, my dad just was a grinder, right? But what he did is he made the job of mayor of Monrovia, which was, it's a beautiful city in the San Gabriel Valley, but my dad really took it to heart, and he ended up becoming president of the League of California Cities. He helped facilitate Monrovia being one of the 10 great American cities, and the president of the United States would visit 5 of those 10 cities that were chosen each year, and my dad facilitated getting Bill Clinton to Monrovia.
Cool.
It was so awesome, and even cooler because my dad was a Republican.
Wait a minute.
I know. He didn't. vote traditionally Republican, and the reason my dad became a Republican was to be contrary, because every member of our family is a Democrat, and he decided he was contrary.
Well, you guys can fight over Caitlyn Jenner, and I was running for governor, but anyway.
Exactly. But
okay.
What my dad would say to me is, listen, you're always going to have adversity. You're always going to have people who tell you that you can't do something, right? Your job is to show them that what they think doesn't matter. Okay? You're going to show them by how you behave, what you do, your work ethic, who you are. You're going to show them that they're wrong. And I've taken that with me in this journey.
That is a great piece of advice that we all can take. Just to finish that story then, what did you say to that person, and did you go home and cry for a week? Because I sure would have.
I didn't cry for a week. I cried for an hour. And I just said, that's an astonishing thing to hear from someone. And I appreciate your point of view. And I left the office, and I was an assistant, and I left shortly thereafter to go to the Gersh agency. And I have to say that Bob Gersh and David Gersh and Phil Gersh were incredibly welcoming, and it provided me with an incredible place to learn how to be an agent.
But it's amazing too that people don't realize what those words that stays with you all these years later, even though you know that he was, I'm just going to say it's an idiotic thing to say,
right?
Also completely inappropriate, and perhaps even, I don't know if it's illegal or not, but I mean, I'm not HR, but still, like that cut, like it stays with you, but if you can let it drive you forward instead of drag you down.
Right. And hey, listen, he said it to me. Imagine just how many people think things like that and just never say it, and they just overlook you, right? And they just, so I kind of appreciate when people are transparent, even when it's not
horrible,
because at least you know what you're dealing with.
Right. And before I let you go, finally, if you had a piece of advice that you could give your 20-year-old self, what would that be?
Well, gosh, Sharon, that's only 2 years ago. No,
yes, exactly. Exactly.
I would, it's the advice I give a lot of young people now, which is pick your battles. Pick your battles. I think that it's important not to sweat things that really at the end of the day probably aren't as meaningful, but really find your lines in the sand and work your butt off to make sure that those standards are met.
That is a great piece of advice. I will take it myself, even though I'm not 20. But I think that's super useful. Lori, thank you so much. And thank you to ICM for having you be here today. What a fantastic conversation.
I want to thank you for doing this. I think it's great that you and the Wrap do this. And I think it's important for young women to just keep seeing us succeed, and let's keep going. But thank you to you too. That was my pleasure.
Thank you. What a pleasure. For all of you who've been watching us, I hope you enjoyed all of today's sessions. If you want, you can head over to our WrapConnect Slack channel to meet other attendees and share your thoughts and your insights, participate in some real-life networking, real-life virtual networking. And we are looking forward to 2 more exciting days ahead. Thank you all for being here for the B Conference.